Welcome everyone to the Select Board meeting for Monday, September 23rd, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a fairly full meeting tonight. We'll go through mail, town administrator updates, Neshoba Valley Medical Center, appoint a new fire chief and building inspector, and park and rec program supervisor. We'll have at 6:50. We'll have a presentation on the tennis court and Whitcomb Field renovation, as part of a joint meeting with the finance committee. Also discuss expanding the park and rec enterprise revolving fund expenditures and review the warrant. At 7:50, we'll do a one-day liquor license for Dirigible. And we'll do department updates, a couple of appointments, a presentation from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee about a potential trail, approve an IMA with Air and Littleton for municipal sewer, review a government study committee, reducing town clerk voting hours, and then we'll have public input and minutes with an adjournment promptly at 9:20. So
Karen kept us early.
yes.
I did.
She knows ahead of time.
Okay. Well,
Pressure.
she can run this one. We'll start with mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Select Board, we still have a good number of current vacancies on our town boards, anything from Agricultural Commission all the way to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So anybody who is interested in volunteering for any of these fine boards, please reach out to the Select Board's office, and we would love to have a conversation with you. Here we up to sign up. Please, everyone sign up to receive public notifications for the town of Littleton. Get community impacts, transportation, public safety activity, town meeting changes, town events, public health concerns at Civic Ready. Please sign up. Two very generous donors to the town. One to Parks and Rec as a donation to the Youth Scholarship Fund by the Denise Flaherty Pagasic. Thank you. I'm sorry, I mispronounced it. In the amount of $2,375. Thank you very, very much. That's very, very generous. And also the Digital Federal Credit Union on behalf of the gift fund of the Littleton Fire Department of a donation of $1,000. And that's it for the mail.
Thank you. An update on the closure of Neshoba Valley.
Go ahead, Chief.
I don't know if you were starting.
No, thank you.
Interim chief.
Yeah, should I do this so I can say anything in this particular? Really quick update on Neshoba Valley. We are continuing to monitor the status of emergency services throughout the region. We are now starting to see that stress that I indicated was probably not far down the road in the EMS system. So we're starting to see a wider use of mutual aid resources in order to cover various calls in communities. Certainly what I can tell you is the towns of Ayr and Groton have seen their fair share of changes due to the closure of the hospital. And we are getting some trickle down into our call volume. So when we look at this month, we can attribute a small number of calls, around 14 of them directly to the Neshoba closure. Typically 14 calls is not going to be a big deal for us. However, this year our average number of calls has gone up by about 5% by the calendar year. So we're dealing with an already increased call volume. Certainly the folks at the back of the room here can attest to the fact that that call volume has been increasing this year. They're the ones that are on the front line doing a phenomenal job every day and every night. and especially at nights, because it seems like a massive portion has gone to those overnight calls. I had an opportunity last week to actually speak to the Lieutenant Governor for a brief period of time about the Neshoba closure, the impacts that the region is seeing, and what the state can do in order to help us. Certainly one of the things that we're still very actively pursuing as the fire chiefs and leaders of communities is finding an avenue to reopen Neshoba. Even if it's 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, it's certainly something that is overall beneficial to the health of the entire region. She had asked about the immediate impacts, and we did talk about the fact that many of these communities are experiencing some budget issues with the Neshoba closure. Certainly as we start to have more calls, we need to adjust our staffing in order to meet that. One of the things that we've done in the Littleton Fire Department specifically is making sure that each shift is filled to 5 personnel. Currently that's being accomplished by using money for currently vacant positions in order to create an offset, so it is budget neutral. However, we do need to continue to maintain that level of staffing. The lieutenants and shift commanders have done an absolutely marvelous job making sure that as multiple calls drop in town, that they're able to take these resources and move them appropriately so that we're not part of the regional problem of multiple calls, we're part of the regional solution to the multiple calls. So I applaud these folks at the back of the room for everything they've done there. In other communities, they have committed additional overtime money. Groton has actually committed to adding 2 additional full-time positions to their staff. So each community is trying to make some adjustments in order to offset these challenges created by Neshoba. And I guess with that, because I said short and then wasn't short, I'll take any questions.
You brought up staffing, so I'm going to kind of go on with that. I haven't seen, obviously, the budgets are being worked. Are you considering that as part of your budget plan as potential for personnel increase?
Yeah, so it's something that we're looking into, whether it's overtime or additional staffing. Those are both certainly on the table.
You said 14 calls. Could you give me in 5% overall improvement?
Yep.
How does 14 compare percentage-wise? That's 1%, 2%.
So that'll create. So when we look at the month of September as a whole, which ultimately 2 weeks ago when I was here, said, "Hey, it's been fairly slow." They proceeded to hate me the next day because it didn't stop for days after that. So in September. Our average is actually closer to 7% when you factor that in against the year. So you're looking at, granted, a higher percentage in order to get there, but you're looking at 12 to 15% in that small data set that we have based on the Neshoba closure.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, next is to appoint Steele McCurdy as fire chief.
Who was talking to us just now?
The interim fire chief.
Do we need to just do a motion?
I believe
Is there
so.
any debate?
Well,
Okay.
you still want it?
We got a small window.
I suppose.
Just nod your heads in the back, yes or no.
Move
I
that,
feel like I've heard me doing it.
move that the select board vote to appoint Steele McCurdy as fire chief for a term beginning on September 13th, 2024 and ending on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations.
Do we need a picture?
Thank
Yeah.
Who's the new guy?
Yeah, the new guy. far my shirt already got dirty too, it's weird.
Yeah, this is all. Great.
Oh, sorry. Right here? Right here.
Move back. Okay, everyone. Okay, good, good, thank you.
Like 2 hours up the street from you. All right, well, that's locked in.
Nice.
Our work is done as far as if I do nothing else.
Yeah, right?
Dropping the mic, Wilson.
Okay, building commissioner. So we have appoint Henry Fontaine as the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer at grade 16, step 9.
Do you want to come up and say hello?
Henry Fontaine, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. Been a building commissioner, building official since 2009. So building commissioner now for the last 7 years. So looking forward to working with you folks, and anything I can do to help out, I'll be happy to do it.
Cool.
So, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
I mean, great resume. You've obviously been doing this a long time, and we love the fact that you've got all your certifications and everything, so it's
ground
fantastic. Welcome to Littleton. I'm glad you made the choice.
Happy to be aboard. Thank you.
If I may, Ryan and I have had a couple discussions with Henry, and we were very, very impressed. And as Gary mentioned about his credentials, but it's just over the course of having a discussion, an interview, there are certain things that really come out. And one of the things that I thought was key is the fact that he is very team orientated, and it's another issue is he views anybody that comes in asking questions, looking for guidance or compliance issues or anything. It's a teaching moment. It's something, it's not going to be a gotcha moment. It's a learning experience for those people, and to help them be successful in what they're trying to do, as long as it's, obviously within the boundaries of the laws. And Ryan and I were very impressed with that. So we were appreciative that he wants to come aboard.
Looking forward to it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We're ready for a motion. I move that the select board vote to appoint Henry Fontaine as the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer at a grade 16, step 9.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
And Henry will be starting October 4th, 3rd. Now it's 3rd. It was, okay. The 3rd. Sounds great.
Henry, can we get a picture? Yeah.
Yeah. Another picture.
That's true.
Back.
We'll just do it by ourselves.
Okay, everybody. Get much closer on this one. This is good. This is good. Okay. Right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, no.
Okay, approve the hiring of John Kazanjian in Park and Rec Community Education Program Supervisor position at grade 12, step 5.
Thank you all this evening. So we're looking at the rec department, and one of the things as we've grown as a rec department that we realized is we needed to get a rec supervisor position into the department, somebody who was really overseeing the program coordinators and more inclined to the day-to-day. as far as programming and the way our operations are currently running. In doing so, we worked with HR, we researched across kind of the nation on what these positions look like and how they fit. And every single year, the NRPA does a survey study, a salary survey study. They also do different groupings of positions. So in working through this, we came out to, the national average for this job currently, as we're trying to make it work, is right around the $73,000, $74,000 mark. In creating this position and going through with personnel board and working with Michelle, we were able to get this rec supervisor position graded, and we were lucky enough to have an internal candidate, John Kazanjian, who's been with our department for 7 years. And if anybody knows John, knows the amazing work that he does, knows the dedication that he has, and he was definitely the right fit for this position. In putting all of this together, we did have a Park Commission meeting last Friday where the Park Commission did vote to approve John's hiring into this position, as well as they also voted to vote that he be put in at a grade 12 step 5, as we came before you tonight with. With that said, I'll open it up to any questions or.
This position is funded out of the revolving fund portion of the budget or the town's portion of it?
Yes, so this position is out of the revolvings. The town portion is Alicia's salary and my salary, and it was part of the admin salary, which no longer is in there.
I think PRC is well served with John, and I'm glad to see him being taken care of and growing within the department. So, yeah, kudos to all of you.
Yeah, I mean, the passion he brings is unparalleled, so he's great for Littleton and great for the programs and the kids and everybody, so glad he's staying with us.
Awesome. Yeah,
Taking on the
amazing.
responsibility.
Okay, move that the select board approve the promotion of John Kazanjian in the Parks, Recreation, and Community Education Program to the program supervisor position at grade 12, step 5.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, you want to take a picture?
John does apologize. Yeah, Chris had a football game tonight, so.
Of course.
Okay, Park and Rec presentation for changes to the tennis court location and Wickham Field renovation.
Are we joint yet?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's joint.
let's make ourselves join.
Come on down. You can be the next contestant. Are you in session?
We have a quorum, we are in session.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight to discuss this project. I have Mike Lynn, who is our athletic director, joining me tonight. We have Dave McManus and Norm Young from baseball and Brad Lang from soccer in the audience as well. In the interest of time, we've presented this slideshow to the school committee. We also did FinCom, Finance Committee last week. Alicia presented that. I'm just going to run through the slides really quick, and then we'll do questions at the end. And Mike, jump in wherever you want to add anything. So how did we get here? Everybody knows this will now be the third town meeting that we are addressing the tennis courts. In 2022, we started with Places and Associates, and they came up with the idea of putting the project out at Cooper Farm. For various reasons, $1.1 million price tag, along with having to bus our high school tennis team over to that location, that was not taken to town meeting floor. We went back to the drawing board and we looked at renovating the Littleton High School tennis courts to 4 courts at fall town meeting. This was given to us at a total of $734,000 from CPC, and that was approved. going through the process of really kind of finalizing this project, after we went to the Park and Rec conference and started looking at some of the contractors that were available, we had a meeting, myself, Mike Lynn, out on the tennis courts with the architect, and it became very quickly apparent that the design that we had been given by Places, the estimates that we had been given by Places at that point were really just estimations. There really wasn't anything that was put in or surveyed. The scope of work seemed to be a little bit lacking, as you'll see in the next slide. After we met with them, Mike and I, we said, well, what can we do? How can we sit down? What do we do here? And we started, having a larger conversation. We asked Activitas to put together a fee proposal for design, permitting, bidding, and construction administration, which came out at $112,000. So if we take that number out of our original 734, we're left with 651 for the current project that we're looking at. Town Council has been and reviewed all of this. We did ask if we could pay for the $112,000 out of the rec revolving, and unfortunately Town Council ruled that this is not something that could be used as services out of the recreation revolving to help cover that cost. Next slide, please. So this was Activitas. This was the drawing they gave us. As you can see, one of the there's two options here. One of the things that was brought up was that the original design by Places was oriented incorrectly. So tennis courts should run north to south. The first proposal was east to west is what we had. In this initial drawing, two things. So running east to west is where you see the biggest obstruction with the school buses, which was a concern by the school department at the time. The proper orientation, which is the slide that is on the right, would really have us cutting way back into that hill and require a pretty significant retention wall adjacent to the Indian Hill parking lot. Next slide, please. So like I said, we went back to the drawing board. We have the Youth Sports Council. We included them in part of the conversation. Mike and I sat down along with Steve Mark and a couple of the other school officials, and we looked at a couple things. So we have been looking at many projects in this town when it comes related to sports fields since 2016 in the first open space and recreation plan, and again in 2023. This same items are addressed. Back in 2017, we did have a study done. It was 2017 Gale Fields Needs Assessment, and all of this that we're going to talk about and address tonight are all things that were addressed back in 2017 in that study. What are the objectives of our plan? To replace the courts that were behind us at Town Hall that are now going to be at the center on Shattuck Street, which was 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. That was our 734 estimate that we were going to look at the high school. Plans to build new pickleball courts, that was a separate project that was going to come along later. That project came around another $700,000 if we were going to build those behind the Indian Hill building. With the current plan that we're putting before you, the tennis courts that exist at the high school will be the 2 tennis courts and the 4 pickleball courts. They've already been resurfaced and redone and exist. So what we lost out back exists at the high school currently. We want to address the shortage of field space in town. So this was listed in the capital plan since 2016, which was the reason for the 2017 field needs study. Overall, the Gale estimated a cost of building a new soccer field at the time in 2016 at approximately $1.1 million. In that study, we also had an improvement to Wickham baseball field to bring it up to the level of Jet softball field. And that in the study came out to approximately $650,000. So the estimated total of all these suggested projects, if they were done all by themselves, is about $3.24 million. With this new plan, we feel that we could save approximately $2.2 million and achieve all the goals that we were trying to get done. So the plan is to convert the existing high school tennis courts to multi-use courts and replace the courts that were demolished at Town Hall. So that's a wash that's already been done. That part of the project is set. Build the new tennis courts at the Littleton Middle School field, which the school board did vote to support. Renovate the existing Wickham baseball field and bring it to the level of Jet. It's kind of a reverse Title IX thing here. We have this awesome softball field. We don't have a baseball field that's comparable. Move all town soccer and all grass field sports to the Littleton High School. not only does this create space for everybody, but it helps with a lot of the traffic problems, with a lot of the adjacent sports practices and all of the other issues that we run into, especially with the schools being pushed back in time. That window has tightly closed on everybody as far as getting on and off the field. And then we would essentially mothball the varsity high school baseball field. It's been unused since the sewer project, and the softball field in the back, which has been unused since 2020. And we would use those as placeholders for fields that you'll see in the next slide, please. The tennis court project would be on the right-hand side of the middle school parking lot. This is what the courts would look like, oriented properly from north to south. It would also allow for the 8v8 size soccer field that you see closest to the gym. Next slide, please. The Whitcomb renovation, what we would look at is Whitcomb Field. As you can see, it sits on my left, and then on the right is the drawing how that would look. There is an opportunity for us to reorient that field and gain some more green space in the outfield to possibly address other issues. We're looking at 305-foot fences in the corners and 325-foot fence in the outfield. So why does Whitcomb matter on this project? So one thing that we've been chasing is the soccer fields, and one thing that we have is if we move varsity baseball field back, soccer is something that continues to grow in our town, and we really have a need for all of this green space. So superimposing what it looks like in the spring, if we have the varsity baseball field there, essentially we lose 3 full-size soccer fields that we could utilize for other spaces. In my reference to the Gale study, we had the 2 soccer fields that are closest to the high school parking lot. The third field that's kind of in the center field of the baseball field was formerly used for football practice, so that we were able to bring that one on board. And then the fourth field, currently there's water issues in the left-hand field side of the softball field, but that's something that we could address in the future and be positive 2 soccer fields. Next slide, please. Ultimately, in the end game, this would become all of our green space. We would play all of our field sports that weren't all alumni at the high school and try to move everything around. So we're working to amend the CPC article. Ryan helped to make that happen this week, so that article has been rewritten. Our Activitas estimate on cost. So for 4 asphalt tennis courts with fencing, surfacing, equipment, and a 20% contingency, that is $600,000. Baseball improvements, including new backstop, net, and fence, team areas, so dugouts with concrete pads, benches and shelters, and an outfield fence, also with a 20% contingency, is approximately $350,000. On September 12th, we were at the school board meeting, and they voted to approve the locations for the new tennis courts, as well as the rehabilitation of Whitcomb Field. Alicia presented to the Finance Committee on September 17th. We still have not had an opportunity to sit down and speak with CPC in person. We just got these numbers at about 3 o'clock today from Activitas. So what we're talking about is to achieve everything, we're looking for an additional $299,000, $300,000 to add to this article. Town Council determined that the rehabilitation of Whitcomb Field is eligible for CPC funding because it's not a stadium. So with that said, Mike, did you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm on board with everything you just said. I mean, I can answer questions as well from the school side of things, but
Yeah, you have a couple.
I should note that this started, Tim mentioned a meeting at the tennis courts. It was Tim, myself, Alicia, and the architect. When he started laying out exactly what was going to need to happen there, it became somewhat apparent that this maybe wasn't the best location for this, what we're going to try to do to shoehorn those in there. You know, one would take away a lot of parking and sidewalk, and I think there was some drainage issues too, or it wasn't making sense. And those aren't great locations anyway, because if we're going to continue to park the buses there, those buses are coming and going while kids are actively playing tennis matches. So if you're familiar with buses, they make that beeping noise and they're blowing diesel out the back. And they're backing into those spaces that are right where our parents are sitting, and wherever the kids are playing. It's not a great location. I will also acknowledge, we don't ever want to lose a field, but as we started looking at this, you couldn't gain this without giving up something. So that field beside the middle school is a modified, somewhat small field. It's a beautiful location for tennis courts. It's a great location for a small field. So something had to give. And then as far as what we're talking about at the high school, you know, I've been working for, I think, 24 years. I've been athletic director for 20. There's an annual meeting. Chuck and Gary will probably get a laugh out of this. I think they've attended that meeting maybe. There's an annual meeting in the spring where they try and hammer out who gets what between baseball, softball, lacrosse, and softball. And that meeting is challenging. And we were trying to maybe solve that once and for all, because soccer has great field needs fall and spring at the youth level. The high school part really isn't about the high school's soccer teams. It's more about trying to solve this massive youth soccer, 500 to 600 kids in the fall and spring. How do we get them enough field space, and also give lacrosse and baseball and softball enough field space? What we're doing this fall right now, we've done that. I mean, we have basically a soccer complex at the high school, and then they have corporate field. And pretty much everything's being played out of there. It's very comfortable. There's more than enough room, honestly. There's field space all the way to the left. In that slide where there was 4 fields, we haven't even tapped into that space all the way to the left. As we're living this fall, I will say, I do want to start tapping into that 4th field, because we might be able to siphon some of the youth soccer off those first 2 fields. And that it's just a nuisance sometimes. We're moving nets all around because there's so many different sizes of nets, but that's a small problem for how much soccer volume we're able to handle at high school and at corporate. And you know, going back a number of years, again, like the turf solved a lot of problems for us. This, I think, solves problems for us as well. And then last piece I think I want to comment on is the Whitcomb piece. I know maybe there's some concern about we're moving all these sports to the middle school complex. One thing we learned over the last 3 seasons of giving up the high school fields, 2 of them in the spring, we thought it was going to be a major inconvenience in the spring. It is a major inconvenience. It wasn't in the fall, but in the spring we actually learned that we kind of like that setting better. The softball players are never going to want to go to the back corner of the high school again and play. That field doesn't even come close to comparing to the Jet Field, which is beautiful field. Like, the grass is perfect, the infield's perfect, you're steps away from bathrooms, you're in a location that's easy to access for people, even people who have issues as far as being able to walk far up to a field or something of that nature. The baseball field is also in somewhat of an advantageous location too, because it's right along the road there. So that complex in the spring has got a lot going on, and there's a lot of people, and you get a lot of traffic, good traffic at all of our locations. You know, maybe track practice ends and those kids come over to catch a baseball game, or lacrosse ends, or vice versa. The baseball kids are done practice, they go over to the lacrosse game. So, the only thing I would say is, if we could go back 25 years ago and not move the high school up to 56th Street, that probably would have been awesome, because our best facilities are all over at the middle school. That's never going to change. The track is over there, and the turf field is over there, and our softball field is over there. So the only thing that was really missing in spring sports is the baseball field, which we have one. It'd be nice to bring it up to the standard of the softball field. And now we're obviously talking about tennis too. We already, whether it's me or the next athletic director, you are always going to have to bus kids from the high school to the middle school in order to keep the kids safe in the fall and in the spring. We run a shuttle bus every day at 2:45. That will never change. It might just mean that there'll be a few more kids getting on that bus who don't drive in the afternoon to go to that location in the spring, because we're always going to need that bus. I covered everything I need to cover.
I wrote down a few questions, because, thank you. So can the public use the tennis courts?
Absolutely.
The 4, not the 2, but the 4, they'll be able to have access to those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim touched upon this, that the school department, we weren't doing much of those 2 tennis courts beside the high school, because we were thinking this was coming. But once we had some meetings and it seemed like this was taking shape, the school department was able to renovate those 2 tennis courts and put the pickleball courts on. And those courts are a good location for pickleball, because I'm sure most people are aware that pickleball presents a problem when it's in a residential location, and that's not really a residential location because of the noise. Pickleball probably wouldn't be a great fit at that middle school field. You've got homes right on the other side of that tree line, and that in other communities, that's been problematic.
One of the things that we did discuss that was brought up by Principal Everhart at our meeting was limiting public use of the middle school location during school hours. And now that we have Indian Hill, anything that happens during school hours, during the school year, we would utilize those as the public courts, similar to how they were before, where people would come to town hall and utilize those during hours. So you would park at Indian Hill and basically access the backside of the tennis courts during school hours.
Yeah.
Obviously during the summer and everything else if they're not booked.
Yeah, that was going to be my next, I had a couple of questions. Obviously, it's going to be a few MOUs that need to be done between the schools and Park and Rec for all these fields. Maintenance and repair of these, are they still falling under schools? Are they falling under Park and Rec? I mean, those are discussions I'm sure they're going to have to happen.
None of the things we're talking about, I think, impacts the way we're functioning currently, or as stated in the last time that MOU was updated, which was a number of years ago. Probably should be updated and signed off on again. But I'm fairly comfortable speaking for DPW that they feel like having 2 full-size diamonds in this town. We haven't maintained 2 full-size diamonds in, I don't even know, 10 years maybe. If you go up to the high school right now, that full-size diamond has not been maintained in several years. And before that, the Whitcomb diamond wasn't being maintained because we haven't needed 2 full-size diamonds. So I think most people know that as far as if you look at field maintenance needs, nothing comes close to a baseball diamond. What it takes to maintain a mound properly and an infield which is cut with grass inside, and to keep all that infield mix to where it needs to be and keep the grass where it needs to be, it's a quite comprehensive compared to say a rectangular field. But yeah, but the MOU, it doesn't really change much because they're already maintaining Wickham Field. We're just talking about enhancements to Wickham Field.
Yeah.
They're actually going to lose grass, right? Because if the tennis courts go beside the middle school, they just lost some grass that they had to take care of. So it doesn't really change much there.
Okay, so when I look at this picture we have up, I'm glad it's here. Was there any thought to push this field even a little bit further to the right, I guess you will, to create more parking? I mean, parking's already an issue. So where the parking currently exists.
Into the outfield.
Yeah, do you see that little green kind of square up in just above? If you took home plate and went towards the parking lot, there's a green square in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's if we wanted to reorient the field. The highest number we got, it would be about $60,000 to move the actual home plate to that location. But that's really as far back as we could go. And if we went back that far back, we'd have to have a pretty heavily modified backstop in order to keep the balls from going out. At that point, the poles and the netting probably would not do the job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was talking pushing it further out.
Towards the outfield.
Because it looks like you have 20, 30 or more feet in the outfield to push that whole stadium to that side. I don't want to call it a stadium.
Towards the tracks.
Towards the track. And that would give you more space for park. I just know parking eventually, just planning ahead, it might not happen in this project, being able to think that far out where maybe 5 years from now, we need to pay for some more parking, or when they repave that entire area, we can steal some spaces, even if it's 20, 30 spaces would be huge.
So the reorientation that I was talking, the one ask of the school department was if in the future, they looked similar to what they looked at for Shaker Lane as far as property that they could extend out to the school. That was one of the asks that they had looked at because they were exploring that site originally, which is one of the reasons, if anybody wants to know why we held off so long and presenting this to everybody, is we were waiting to see what that submittal was going to be.
I think I had I'm sorry.
Just to, if I can jump on the parking thing, I think what Gary's talking about is where the outhouse is, where that gate is to get onto the field along first baseline.
Yep.
That whole grassy area by the shed.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, we could look into doing that. We would at that point, I think, be inside that 100-foot buffer, so we'd need to work with conservation as well at that point.
And even do some impervious.
Yep.
That area over there, are we talking about the area more towards the pond?
If you
Towards
go
the
right down the
batting
first baseline,
Yeah.
right to where the porta potty sits at the bottom of the town hall road.
Yeah, I think that would, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying it would probably increase the scope of the project because I think there's some drainage issues over there, definitely a wet area a lot of times. And now you're talking about reorientating a diamond and getting everything, we'd probably lose, I think we'd at least lose a season in that scenario.
Yeah, my discussion is just since you're designing this, if you're going to move it anyway, just move it a little further out so later on we have, even if we had to expand the drive-through there, because we already
Parking at
know with
Russell.
football games, lacrosse, it gets really packed in there when there's two sports going on. Really, the only other, I brought up the same thing you did. Why the heck did we ever move? I wanted to move the high school back to the middle school building. It would have been a perfect fit, but
Well, we can do that now, because Mike said that it would be better if the high school was with all the fields, and we can put a couple of the grades in the middle school, a couple of the grades in Russell Street, and move all the other kids up to the soccer field. And Mike's happy. Look at all the money he's gonna save busing kids.
From an athletics perspective, it just, many, many years ago, the decision was made to build the high school on that land, I understand that, but the town just put back fields back there. We just have green space back there. So, as the turf and the track have come up over the years while I've been here, we looked at, should we build a track where it currently sits, or should we put it up at the high school? And it was like double the cost. And then you'd still have a track at the current location that was basically was in need of replacement too, so what are you gonna do with that? And the same thing with alumni, it's like, we had this field that the bleachers were failing, the buildings were failing, the field wasn't in bad shape, the pavement, the fencing, all of it. So we looked at the high school, but then now we still have to remedy this situation here. So the decisions were made to stay the course. And it's a great facility down here. It's a great setting. The only issue is the high school is across 495 and up the road. But we make it work. Nobody is complaining and saying a perfect world, we'd probably be on the same complex. But we make it work.
my last point is LYBS, I'm assuming there's still an entity here.
Yeah.
Right in the back.
No.
How are you? On board with this is something that's going to work. I know that program can be pretty robust, it's cyclical, but especially when you get up into the senior grade kids that jump up to the bigger diamonds, is this work going to work for that as well?
Yeah, so if I can for a second.
Come up here, no.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
Not my foot today. Hi, Norm Young from LYBS. Yeah, so right now, as a matter of fact, we have a Babe Ruth program. In fact, we had a game, we got rained out yesterday. And one of the reasons we did get rained out is because the field is in Whitcomb's in tough shape. So we are in full support of it. Babe Ruth is going to use the field, and Babe Ruth, we've struggled over the last couple of years. Having excitement around this program is starting to bring kids back. And it happens, my son also plays on the varsity baseball team. And as Mike said, the excitement around that baseball team and the kids, they had their first home playoff game in 7 years this past spring. And we had our little kids come, and I think Chuck stopped by. There was kids, the most kids I've seen at a baseball game in years. And we didn't have that when it was behind the high school. And like I said, that excitement around these fields, like Air redid theirs a couple of years ago, and that's a lot of the field we're going for, is to get you get the kids showing up, just like Mike said. They're coming from track, they're coming from everywhere. The only kids that came when they were up at the high school were the girls walking back when their game was over. So those boys didn't have anybody watching them play. It was just the kids, the girls walking by. A couple of them stopped, but not many. But in fact, the high school, the varsity coach called his grandmother after that playoff game to tell him, it's like, you wouldn't believe what we had here today. And it was the first time that he had seen that many kids come. So we are, that, like I said, that we are fully on board, just that excitement and building the excitement around the program. So.
You guys wouldn't happen to have a couple 100,000 kicking around in your phone.
We stash it.
Thank you.
Just say you have to put lights on this field.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just ask questions? We're talking fields. Anyone want to touch the whole, what's going on at St. Anne's with that field?
Yeah. I'm happy to forward you the email. I think a lot of people in this room were part of at least seeing the conversation that went back and forth. Unfortunately, the relationship between the MOU and the agreement that we had with them, there were things that they were asking for that as a town we just can't provide them. So seal coating of parking lots, painting. The agreement was always with them was to utilize the grass fields in trade for the maintenance, the mowing, the fertilization, all of those things. Outside of, really what we were up against this year when we had our final meeting, I think the ask they had was in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $60,000 worth of work that they were asking for. And ultimately that there were things that we couldn't do as a town, even if we wanted to, just because of the way that the finance and the laws work. We were able to sit down and negotiate a contract with the Bible Church on Sahadawan Road. So currently the youth soccer program has utilized that. I believe with us, really kind of working the plan out and, why this plan seems to work, and Brad can speak to this, is, I don't really think we've had a need to really go to the Bible Church since we put most of the fields up at the high school.
Correct. I mean, we average 500 players each season for fall and spring, and every year we're fighting to put all of our teams for practices. And last spring we actually had to go rent space at Teamworks every week because we didn't have enough field space. We've already implemented this with going up to the high school and corporate, and it's been a blessing for field space. And I bet if you ask Tigers Den, it's been a blessing not having 100 cars cycle through there to drop off and come to practice. So from a soccer standpoint, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, no, this is a great project, totally supported. I just figure we're always going to we're never going to say no to another field should one become available. So I just like to raise that issue periodically.
Yeah, through the chair, Brian brings up a good point. I'd continue that relationship with St. Anne's because Mike, you were just talking about anytime we go under a construction or we're changing fields, that we need field space. And even if it was for a one season type thing, just having that relationship, we might be able to use it for a year.
Some time.
So I wanted to touch upon something that I thought of when Norm was talking. So the jet field now is a fenced field. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's honestly just an incredible venue for softball. It's a dedicated softball field. I think maybe it was the Saturday we had Saturday soccer on alumni. There was structured softball practice of some sort going on that day. So I'm just assuming there's some kind of fall softball program in place? Okay. So you have fall softball going on, which in the past, most of our baseball softball diamonds had soccer fields in the outfield. So you can now you don't have to check with me, check with soccer, whatever. You want to run fall softball, you just do it because you know the field is available. Again, trying to get that same thing for baseball because year-round sport has kind of become reality. I'm not a huge fan of it. But, fall and spring soccer is a reality. Fall baseball and fall softball are realities now. Kids want it, parents want it. That jet field, if it goes through and we get a full fenced-in, tight field, that will be a baseball field. So if baseball wants to run fall programming, they can run fall programming. The only field that could potentially go across that outfield is a middle school field hockey field. That's the only potential right now. Because that is actually where the tennis courts, we're currently playing that, where the tennis courts will go. But that's one team, one sport in this whole thing. That could potentially go across the Whitcomb outfield, but there will be no soccer programming in that outfield. That will be a baseball diamond and will be maintained properly because it's going to be the only full-size diamond that, by design, is maintained. The high school one will sit, as Tim mentioned, mothball. I've never heard that term, but I like that.
Good with ships. So with that also, we do need to address, middle school sports. As Mike mentioned, middle school field hockey, we look at moving it from where originally they were always in Wickham outfield. We've moved them since over to the middle school site that we're going to, hopefully utilize for the tennis courts. Middle school soccer would then go inside the track. So every other sport that we've ever had inside the track is a pretty heavily modified field because of the infield of the track is not quite large enough to fit most sports fields on them. So middle school soccer, that would become their dedicated location. If you can just flip back to that baseball slide one more time. As part of this, we have been thinking about every scenario and how does it impact the town? Do we have space? So to that point, one thing that we talked about is with the Shaker Lane project going on, the reasons that we say we're going to mothball these fields, we're not just going to sod them over right away and create this fourth soccer field. One of the things is, if you can see you obviously can't see underneath the big varsity picture, but if you can see in the back corner, if we had to take the Shaker Lane fields offline during the construction project, very easily we can put those two smaller fields, Ken White and Cooper, we could skim these infields and have a quick replacement for them. And then once that project's done and the new fields are built out as they are in the design, we would then sod these, and that finishes this out, and we can fix the drainage issue in the right field, have the fourth, full-size soccer field, and then the two little baseball field areas could essentially become two more 8v8 fields in the future, which would be basically the space that we're looking for. It's Chasen at St. Anne's.
One other piece too that, and we're already there with this honestly, is we're trying to get free up the infield of the track as much as possible. I really wanted youth soccer off of that infield. I just feel like it doesn't work. We get too many people misusing the track when we have activities like that inside, like maybe kids bring their bikes down or rollerblade, things of that nature. But kids are going back onto the track to get soccer balls, and if you pivot on a track with cleats, it's not great for the plexi track surface. So we were trying to get that, which we've already done. At the most with this plan, what we would put back inside the track is just middle school soccer, but not youth soccer, because we don't need that space. We used to have 3 7v7s inside the track. Now there's 0 7v7s inside the track, and that should continue in the spring, provided the high school is essentially like a soccer complex, like what you've seen on the slides.
And we keep saying soccer, but these are full-size fields. Lacrosse, really any field sport that needs to be up there could be something that we could put up there.
So when you're at the middle school field, you have the tennis courts fit in there, it looks great. You're saying you're looking at an 8v8 field behind that? Is that essentially on top of the drainage swale that's there?
No,
right
so
now?
can you please go back to the tennis courts slide? So if you look at that picture,
Yep.
see at the very bottom of that picture, you can see the drainage swale fence. So
Can't
it's,
see it,
it's
but- oh,
what's
the
that?
fence, yeah.
You
All
see the
right.
black fence, so it's outside of
Okay.
that. And from the preliminary survey, it seems like that retention pond is large enough for the stormwater mitigation that we would need. When Mike had mentioned that the original high school site, we had a lot of stormwater mitigation we're going to have to address, because we're going to have to take out a lot of the islands that existed in that parking lot in order to address, at the time, the bus concerns. This is a little easier for us.
Okay, and that field doesn't fit if you slide it, if you reverse it. I'm just thinking of the impervious material that the tennis court's going to be built on, drainage.
Correct.
It's grass right now, so it absorbs it, right? So if you're going onto a solid surface, where does that runoff go, type of thing, so.
Correct, and that's what I was saying. In the initial assessment by Activitas, they felt that drainage swale was oversized enough to probably take care of a lot of that. That's not an exact answer. There's, once we get into engineering construction, we're going to find those things out. But it appeared that it would handle it.
Are those courts oriented east to west on
They're
that,
north to south.
on that picture?
The east courts?
Yeah.
North to south.
That's a crow fly.
They're about 5 degrees tilted west, but they are north to south.
That's a home court advantage.
But without having to do any drastic, we don't really have the property to be able to shift them that little bit towards the parking lot. They really need to come about 5 degrees this way to be perfectly north to south.
And you think the soccer fields at the high school are going to hold up to the use that they're going to be put to?
So the nice piece is if we get to that four
Field.
field,
You can
thank
rest
you.
it.
thing, we'll be able to rest 1 or 2 fields a season.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we wanted to pilot it this year with soccer before we put the proposal all the way forth, because right now we're using 3. We're resting the middle school field. If we got that 4th one online, now we can rest Kerper and something else, and we can keep working our way through and keep the quality of our playing fields up, because that's what really hurts us right now is when we have to take something offline. Like we took Kerper offline the past 2 years because it got so much use while the high school was shut down, and we have these long periods. So now we can put this rotation in process. So when we say this gives us 5 to 10 year growth potential, not only do we have room for soccer, lacrosse, everybody else to grow a little bit and still have field space for them, it also gives us the ability to rest our fields appropriately and hopefully save some money on maintenance down the road because we're not beating them up.
So, but that 4th field isn't part of the budget numbers that you're proposing tonight?
That 4th field, as soon as we could put that 4th field in, we don't need it right now. If we wanted to take the paint and paint it, the only thing we don't have for it is $8,000 worth of soccer nets. We don't own the last set of goals that we would need to bring it online.
I thought you said it was really wet.
It gets wet in the left field corner of the outfield.
Okay.
It's not that we would ever have to, that's something that we would say, okay, we got a lot of rain, it's wet, and we're going to shut it down for today and tomorrow, whatever that would be. It doesn't take away completely from utilizing it. We played softball up there for 10 years, and we've always had that situation.
The wetness issues there have been there for 23 years. So it does seem like it's gotten a little better recently. I don't know why. I was on it today. We had girls soccer out back today, and I was over there, and we could have played on it today, honestly, in that area. But the spring has been tricky over in that area there. And we have like a couple areas where there's some areas where it's depressed right now. But again, we haven't been using that site for 2 years, so the maintenance cycle hasn't quite been there. But those are issues that we've been fighting for over 20 years. But the green space is there. It's already there. So there's nothing to really do there. I will tell you that the 2 new fields that are on top of the discharge site, we are having some issues there with wetness that we've never had before. So they're super compacted, and we're now, looking at this. We had an inch of rain, and the field all the way to the right today wasn't playable. I'm just making people aware of that. It'll probably take a couple of days. We never had those issues there, but DPW is aware of it and they're working on it. But that's maybe something that people in this room are already aware of.
And so what is the warrant article going to ask for?
So we would be looking for an additional $300,000 worth of funding in order to complete this project as it was presented.
And you're intending on taking that out of CPC? You're intending on that being funded by CPC funds?
Correct, that would be the ask. But like I said, we haven't, with
Right,
just
right,
getting these numbers, we
sure,
haven't had
I get
that
it. I'm just-
conversation with them. I did, make a call to Saul, who is our park commissioner, and he's also on CPC, and just kind of put this, but as far as Carolyn's here, I haven't had an opportunity to get her up to speed on it.
Got it.
I just had a couple of questions. The original estimate that Places did that didn't take into account the things about the cost, what was your expectation from that estimate? I mean, were you expecting it to be a firmer number?
So it was right around what we would have expected the tennis court to come in at. Unfortunately, because there was no survey, the initial amount that we had given them for design, we used on the Cooper property design, and there was a small amount left over. I believe it was just under $50,000. So what we were given was more of wasn't really a design as much as it was just here's a visual look over. And in doing so, when Activitas, basically they took my picture, not Activitas, Places had taken my picture, I drew on my computer and just really put it on there and gave us a number for town meeting. And when we sat down with Activitas and we were out there for the first time, we started realizing that, Places never took into account for the 25-foot setbacks that they need in all of the courts. They never took into account, well, if we orient the field this way, that we're going to need to significantly dig into the hill and we're going to need some sort of a retention wall over here in order to orient the fields the correct way. So as we started looking at that, and had our conversation, that was what really started to say, okay, what can we do, and how do we fix this problem and still come in at this number? And how do we look at these other projects at the same time?
Okay, so I guess my question on that was, I was just trying to understand whether you think you got the value from them that you wanted. So you think for what they gave you on the first field on Kirkwood to do it was what you had asked for, and this was just kind of a little extra thing they threw in when you brought in that site?
Correct.
So then where did the prices from, you had said that to get the pickleball would be $750, a new field, $1.1 million, and to improve Wickham, who provided those estimates?
So in 2016, the town paid for a field needs assessment. So this was Gale and Associates. So those numbers are taken directly from that report.
And those are 200.
Like I said, those are 2016 numbers as well.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So one of the things that, if you go to can you go to the picture with the high school? No, not the tennis court, sorry. Not the tennis court.
That? The one comparing the
activity.
That's the middle
Second
school.
slide. Thank you.
So, I'm not sure why the picture on the right takes over the trees rather than moving the buses. But one of the things that we had actually originally talked about was building a road that went from the Indian Hill parking lot through, and now we're not gaining that, correct? So there's no access from Indian Hill through. I mean, I think we could have thought about this a little more. We could park the buses over at Indian Hill potentially, put the road through that we had talked about so that people could get from the old Indian Hill to the traffic light and not have to access. So none of that was ever considered?
So all of that was considered. I think one of the things that we spoke about was if we oriented the courts properly north to south, because that building sits, there's a little shed right there, that's part of Light and Water. We couldn't push any farther to the north, so we were going to lose that road because of the setbacks we needed on the tennis courts.
Losing. Okay.
There's a shed, there's a building, it's a pump house.
It's the old pump house. I don't know if it's the current.
Well, it's still being used to get the
Right.
effluent up there.
So in order to complete this,
For another.
right, in the timetable that originally was looked at, in order to complete this, that wouldn't have been an option, and you would have had no way to build the roads to achieve the proper setbacks and fencing, and the way the retaining wall would have to be on the corner of that property, which is what it was looked at. Now, if we build these tennis courts at the other site, you have that road still fits if we wanted to address that in the future.
Well,
and to my knowledge, I don't think that was part of the original scope.
I'm not sure how the road
tennis.
still fits because the tennis courts are in the exact same position. But anyway, could you also tell me, you had 734 from CPC.
Mm-hmm.
You said the tennis courts are going to cost $650 and the Wickham, and the Wickham field was $300. I'm wondering why you're asking for an extra $300. It sounds like more money than the two projects added up to, or did I miss something?
Can you go to that slide, Ryan?
This one?
Nope, keep going.
Keep going to the activity
Keep going.
costs. Okay, so 734 is the number. If we take out the $112,000 for the design and construction bid, that gets us down to that 651 number. So in looking at this, it's $600,000 to build the tennis courts with a 20% contingency built in. So that leaves us with $51,000. If we want to complete the baseball field, that's $350,000. So if you say take that $51,000 off your, at $299, that's where we get the $300,000 from.
So you have 950 plus the 112 is what you're saying?
I think that's right, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Do you have any, Carolyn from CPC, do you have anything?
So I haven't seen the updated warrant article. Is it all together? Are these two projects all going to be considered under one article?
That's the plan. Yeah, that would be the plan. So basically, if you remember, there was some portion of it that was debt, and then there was other that would be taken up from the balance. So the proposal would be that the additional $300,000 would be taken from your fund, from the CPC fund balance.
Because to me, it seems like two separate, I haven't talked to the committee at all, but it seems like two separate projects. And if we're amending a project that we've already, it seems like quite an amendment. It's totally different in scope. I think if you had come. I guess if you had come to us, 3 months ago when we had some time, and you had presented us with one article for both of these projects, I would have advocated to split them. And I know that you need all of them done at once. However, we could do tennis courts without doing Whitcomb Field. And I feel like especially if we're amending an article that has already been passed by the town for tennis courts, that now we're going to ask for an amendment to not just do tennis courts, but also to put in a baseball field as well. And it just seems like I don't know. Like I say, I haven't talked to the committee. We haven't had a chance to meet on this yet.
So Carol, just to clarify, so what I think I agree with you that it was confusing as such, so what the proposal will be to rescind the initial amount and just have it as a new article that includes both components, because if you were trying to just amend what's there now, I agree with you, it would be too complex. So the idea was to just strike the entire amount, or the entire article, freeing up the $734,000. But then the new article would be keeping the component for which you were borrowing for, and then expanding that additional amount, the $300,000 that's being requested here for both components.
That makes me feel a little better, but still, I think it should. I would like to see it as two separate articles, but.
And we, just to clarify, we did ask, and if we were to bid this out twice, so if we went to construction design and bidding for the baseball field, not in conjunction with this, essentially this project would come down about $20,000, $30,000 by taking that off the table. But the other package to put that together just for Wickham would cost us between $60,000 and $70,000 to do this as a separate construction bid and everything else. So when we looked at that, that was one of the pieces that we were looking at packaging it together.
Of the 734 that was originally allocated, has anything been spent?
I would just say we can review that. We have to be voting on articles tonight.
We are.
We have to lock them in.
Right, but I think that if say the CPC came back and said they wanted to do it as two separate
We could do a
articles,
placeholder.
I mean, we could
do a placeholder for it.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing in the world.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting set yet. We typically meet the third Wednesday, but I warned everyone we may need to meet early. It's just there's like 9 people on the committee, so sometimes it's difficult to rearrange around other meetings, but we'll meet as soon as we can. Once we get the details, it'll be good.
So Cal, I know your committee hasn't met, but for this extra $300,000 that they'll be asking for, do they have that in their recreation bucket, or would you have to be hitting the unallocated?
No, we do have enough. There was about 1.3 million at the end of last year before all the fiscal year stuff went through for a town meeting, but that almost is a wash, so there'll be plenty.
Okay. And just to remind us, 334 that we're borrowing, the debt service is paid from CPC, but the town said we would contribute that extra money to CPC to pay for it.
There's also the money that from the water department through CPC that we could petition.
True.
That we could petition, yes.
$200,000.
Yeah, we have to just get the water commissioner's approval for that, but we could do that too.
So if we do that running, we're running up against time for you, right?
Yes. I mean, I know the LLWD is meeting Wednesday night, so suppose they could amend their agenda, so that's a possibility. Try to make that work, if that's the spirit of if Carolyn, Liz might be.
Yeah, we're better project to spend it on, so. You guys agree?
Yeah, I do.
We had also, Steve, there was 118,000 that was put in the debt service that we voted on at town meeting. Will that need to be changed as well?
Jeez.
That's part of the
Right.
budget that they had.
Right, but I think we'd have to report back to you on that.
Yeah.
What it would be, but-
I don't care one way or the other, just
Yeah.
didn't want to get too overlooked.
Depends when the payment become due, how much
Yeah.
they,
Right, and so far they haven't
yeah.
done anything, but so, yeah.
All right, so we'll get that wording from you, and then
Yep.
we'll meet and...
I have, this is at least a draft for you, if you can look at it.
Okay. I'll do that. Okay,
Article 4.
okay, thank you.
On that debt service money, the worst comes to worst, it sits with your fund, and you can use that to pay the first
Right,
year.
yeah. Wasn't sure where we were rescinding and all that needed to be addressed.
No, that was a separate article.
A separate article,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And when does this go to print?
So, I close the business on Thursday of this week.
I'm sorry.
We close the business by Thursday of this week, Fred.
Okay, we done with that? We'll think of Park and Rec revolving fund?
Sure, this is just, this is something that we've been doing our fair share of. This is a request to increase increase the cap for the FY25 Department Revolving Fund expenditure limit for Parks and Rec from 1.5 to 1.8 million. Just seeing where the spending trends are, we're anticipating even this early in the year that the spending will increase up to 1.8 million. This is just demonstrating more the popularity of their programs and bringing in some more revenue. So we could have put this on as an article at town meeting, but there's a great recommendation by town moderator saying that we basically could do this where the vote of the finance committee and the select board. So with both of your approval, we can make this adjustment and not have to bring this in as a separate article.
Tim, what's causing the extra spending?
So as we see an increase in our number of participants, it's really essentially money in, money out. So we need to get additional supplies. So if we have 180 campers, we need 180 t-shirts. As that really goes up, that's where we see a lot of our expenditures. We've seen a lot of increase just with everything else, inflation of the products that we buy. So we're doing the same programs, but they're costing us more to run. And then on top of that, our field trips and other, venues that we're taking people to, as their staffing, costs go up, their ticket prices go up. So we've seen it across the board in all aspects of the department. So it's not just where we're going, what we're buying, but we've had more kids than ever this year utilizing our programming.
And our fees keeping up with the extra expenses?
Yes, so our fees are keeping up with the extra expenses. John and I regularly meet with the program coordinators and Alicia, and we talk about, how much does Camp T need to go up this year in order to tolerate some of the things that we're seeing. One of the things that we do try to do, and is part of our mission statement, is to try to be as low cost as we can to the residents of Littleton. And in our camp costs, if you look across the board, we joke about a lot, but we are one of the cheapest games in town for what we offer. And we do, give incremental increases between 3 to 5% per year. And we look to make cuts in other places so that we don't have to increase the user fees drastically. If you look at Camp T, the number really hasn't changed. I believe that we haven't increased more than like $40 or $50 over the past 7 years that I've been here. So we try to build it in and keep it as low as we can.
Okay, it's something that you guys continuously look at?
All the time.
Okay.
We have a finance meeting once a month. That's all we talk about is, where are our programs, what are we charging, how are we doing it? one of our highest grossing programs is Neshoba, and year after year they raise the rates on that, but families love it because it's right around the corner. So that's something that we have to keep up with.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim?
Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight.
Thanks for keeping it brief.
Should we do two motions? I move that the Select Board vote to amend the fiscal year 2025 Department revolving fund for Parks, Recreation, and Community Education from $1.5 million to $1.8 million.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen, all in favor?
Aye.
Have a motion? Same motion?
I'll move that the Finance Committee vote to amend the fiscal year 2025 Department revolving fund for Parks, Recreation, and Community Education from $1.5 million to $1.8 million.
Second.
Moved by Mike, second by Fred. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Review the warrant.
Okay.
I can use the extra 300,000 to build the field.
Hey, that works out.
So we left copies for those of you who we have the warrant in front of you. My hope is to go through each one of the articles, and where there is a recommendation that both boards could respectfully make a recommendation that we could then add to the draft. As I mentioned to Fred earlier, the draft is due back to the printer on Thursday. So without any further ado, some of these things you've already heard about, so let's just go through it. First is the report of the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. We've made the town moderator, actually, Tim, if you want to come up, actually, if you'd like to.
Seats.
Please, if we get some extra seats, so, here. But the first is a report of the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. As the Finance Committee and Select Board know, we're going to be doing some joint meetings in October and some community listening sessions to try to refine this presentation for that meeting. And that's also going to include the school committee as well. So as we further refine that, that's when that report will be provided. I have it down that the Select Board make a recommendation, but generally speaking for the report, I don't think we would be asking that at this time, although I certainly don't want to presume anything on the report. And what's that general rule for any reports in terms of making it?
I don't think we need a recommendation.
I don't think we need a recommendation. So this is more of an FYI that this is happening, and then you'll be participating in those updates. So
There had been a question whether Tim would find it acceptable, once that report is given, whether it'd be allowed to be discussion by the audience. I don't recall there being discussions on those reports, but it would be hard to imagine that this wouldn't generate audience participation requests.
It wouldn't be my intention to have discussion. I mean, it's a report. And the action town meeting is taking and voting, literally voting to hear the report. We'll hear the report, and that'll for that town meeting, that'll be it. I mean, there'll be other forums for the.
So that should just be clear before the report is heard.
Sure, yeah.
FYI.
I do think that there are going to be people who are eager to speak about it, but it won't be productive to talk about something that they're not going to vote on. It would be better to talk.
It's going to be forums, it's going to be a lot of other sessions.
Right.
I was going to say, if the committee could include in their presentation what the next meeting date is where they'll take questions, that would probably help.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be on a Friday.
Good luck telling people they can't ask questions. I mean, you're up to it, man, but.
Not my office hours.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, Article 2 is bills of prior years. We have some bills from Wind Waste Innovations. This is the dumpster services at the Nagog Orchard when we were doing our initial cleaning after the
last tenant left. So it's fairly straightforward, needs to be a 9/10 vote, and we request both boards' support here on that matter. Bill?
We're going to group all these at once.
Well, we can do, I mean, we can go through each one.
Yeah, I think we go through them all.
Okay, we go through them all?
Let's
Okay.
vote one vote to recommend all the articles that the select board would like to do.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine, okay.
So number 2 is a yes.
Okay, all right. Article 3 is to amend Article 11 from the October 17th, 2020 special town meeting. So this is when we went out and borrowed $2.5 million, which was I think our first borrowing on the sewer. We made a specific reference to MassWorks grant being funds that we would be using to pay back that loan. And as we got into the project, we realized that we were expending money out of that amount for what were non-MassWorks grant eligible pieces. And this included expenses like the design and engineering and construction of the effluent recharge site at the Littleton High School, which we talked a little bit about, which is currently under the field. So this is basically just a small tweak in language so that we can keep bond council happy and that we're spending it in a way consistent with what town meeting allowed us to.
Pretty much housekeeping.
Basically housekeeping.
As long as that's explained too, that'll be another bunch of questions.
Sure. Okay. Article 4 is our tennis court and renovation of Whitman Field article. So, as I was discussing with our CPC chair, it would get confusing to keep it in as currently written. So the proposal would be to strike that past article and then basically make those funds available. It's the $734,000 from the initial article. We would then amend it. These numbers have not been updated because we just got the numbers in about 3 o'clock today. So the idea would be that you would be keeping the $334,000 to be borrowed, and then the difference then would be added in those in that line above. So this basically would allow us to move forward with the plan that Tim and the athletic director had outlined for you earlier today. So the form of that, again, we'd have a little time to to maybe tweak, but we still need to go to the CPC. And there was the other suggestion made about whether LELWD could be able to entertain this prior to their meeting or at their meeting on Wednesday night.
So maybe hold off on the recommendation.
We could do that. We could do that. Yep.
Brian, just one question. They've already spent about $100,000 of the 734.
They said they had
No.
Yeah, there really hasn't been anything. The design that they talked about for the earlier design at the high school was that
Cooper.
Jerry was asking about was paid out of the Cooper article. So this should be.
There's no reduction.
Okay, so, all right, I just want to make sure the math works at the end of the day, and if you're comfortable.
No, that's fair enough, yeah.
But he talked about taking the 734 down to 750.
Right. So I think.
So where's the 80 grand? That's all. As long as the
understood.
numbers
So,
are
like,
right, I'm okay.
Right. So that we would just adjust it on, yes, we would need the numbers to add up. But I think at this point where we've had these other $200,000 that have been introduced, is maybe the best thing for both boards.
Save the recommendation for the floor.
Yeah, save the recommendation for the floor. That's good.
Well, can I speak to that, Mr. Chair? Can we make a recommendation conditional on Light and Water Department, Light and Water contributing the $200,000 to that 334?
Well, you've got two things. One is the CPC vote.
They haven't even voted.
Which is hopefully okay. But
Gonna wait either
maybe
way.
not. And you've got the magnanimous just activity by the Light and Water Commissioners. to spend the money that they were
But
donating.
keep in mind, we can write this up in any way. Like if we can say that the report was given and that both boards viewed it favorably, but however, these other factors were still in play, and thus it was determined that a recommendation, it would be more responsible to make a recommendation at this time meeting. So you can at least still signal that, you know, that it was viewed positively, but that you wanted to wait until
All the information.
all the information. So, you know, so that's another way around.
Thank you.
I have a quick one if I may. So as it stands now, obviously could be reduced based on further conversations, but we're going to borrow $334,000. Who pays the interest on that?
CPC pays.
Yeah.
The town agreed last year with this original project. That's one of the ways that we make an extra contribution to CPC. We cover it, donate the money to CPC. They repay the town with those same funds.
Okay, so we'll
So we
forward
get the
them
matching funds on the money we give
There's
them.
seasoning
and we
money.
just give it right back. Yeah.
Okay. Just better, sells better if we can say it's not coming out of the general fund. That's what I like.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Right, everyone will say it's free.
Free cash?
Yeah.
Go there.
Okay, Article, I think I have enough on that one. So Article 5 is to add the Schedule D permanent and part-time employees. These are our call firefighters. So right now...
Before we
yeah.
jump off of that, I'm just thinking with the 200,000 still in play, should we reduce the amount we borrow instead of reducing the amount that we're taking out of CPC?
Good.
Yes.
That way we just ban it once, pay it off that first year, and we're done.
You could, yeah.
I think
That's what I was thinking in my mind. You didn't.
You know,
No,
I got it.
But
Church.
I don't
no, I
think so.
had it that way. That's how I was understanding it. But it wasn't that way. I was wrong. I was right for the wrong reasons.
Carol, does that make sense to you?
Sounds good to me, yeah.
Yep.
And again, I think we'll have some other conversation with LLWD tomorrow and see if they can make this happen.
Okay.
Okay, Article 5 is to add the Schedule D permanent part-time employees. So when we approved of the personnel bylaw and classification compensation plan back on May 7th, we excluded the on-call folks with the hope that we would be able to, this is fire on-call, and the hope was that maybe we would be able to wait a little bit, or we get more information, presuming that the union had reached agreement with the town at that time. They still have not. We have a placeholder later on in this warrant if we are able to reach agreement with them. But we also thought that it wouldn't make sense for us to stop and sort of bring them up. This is 2.5%, consistent essentially with how we're handling the Schedule A employees, which is 2.5% COLA, as well as a 2.5% change from steps as they move their way up. So we just didn't want to hold that back and thought it would be appropriate to bring it back to the special. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's see. Article 6 is to amend Article 4 of the November 1, 2023 special town meeting. So when we set aside $400,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund, we specifically set that aside for, this is for renovation of 36 King, otherwise known as the Indian Hill Music School, for professional services. And what we're asking here is to expand that and to allow for professional services and construction expenses. I think a total spending for the OPM and the architect actually came in a little bit less. So this allows us to expend those monies on the project, and was always sort of what we thought of as the total project budget. This is just basically, again, another housekeeping thing for us. It doesn't add any additional money, but reallocates the money to allow it to be used for construction specifically.
So that's what the 400,000 is spent on.
Right, so it just expands it. It's just putting another piece of language in it, allowing it to be used for construction as well.
Yeah, we had to do this with the
We
library.
saved 400 and then we decided to go spend it instead of saving the 400.
So we don't have to borrow it.
I'm not sure I was following that one. You mean?
No, what you said was,
Yep.
or I thought I heard you say
Okay.
was the 400 was not spent.
All of it wasn't.
Not all of it.
Right, yeah, not all.
We
of
have
them.
300 something.
Roughly speaking, for our OPM and our architect, so now there's a little bit, of the 400, there's a little bit left over, and we're proposing to make that available for construction. And that's how, when we presented the project in total to town meeting, was the thinking that we'd be using the entire amount. This just allows us to do so. Okay.
Same project, though.
Same project, yeah, and it's not adding anything to what the numbers that we presented at town meeting. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay. All right, Article 7, this is something we do on a regular basis where we clear out our old warrant articles, the equivalent of looking for change in the couch, and make that available for other things. So the first piece is to, from the list that you have here on the table, would be to clear this out and do two specific things. One is to transfer $135,409.70 for various capital projects for buildings under the care, custody, and control of the Select Board. So basically, if we have, with having this funding set aside, if we run into an emergency situation where we have a collapsed roof, we have a boiler break, a lot of older buildings and a lot of risk that's associated with that. So having something that we don't necessarily have to go to the Finance Committee for an immediate reserve fund transfer, or waiting for town meeting if it's something more substantive than that, this is a resource that we have that we can tie into. In addition, we're requesting $25,000 be set aside to support our 5-year recertification of residential, commercial, and industrial property. So Mass DOR wants us to be going through and looking at all of our residential, commercial, industrial property. He also wants to do our personal property, re-up that through a service, and partnering with companies that'll go in and look at all of these sites. So we're hoping for, in talking with the town assessor, that she'll be able to afford this in her operating budget next year without making any changes for personal property. But she wanted to get ahead and hire this other company, because what they're finding is that the people who wait too long and put this money in, say, the May town meeting, are finding themselves further behind, and she didn't want to get behind. She wanted to be able to put the money aside and get them right to work on this. So it seemed like a reasonable thing to do, and we had a funding source for it. So I always tell people that the assessor's office is the cash register of the community. So it's critical that we stay on top of that, and this gives us a jump, reflecting the fact that many of these groups that do this type of work are already overwhelmed and committed to other communities. So any questions on that?
The only question I have is, so you've got, it sounds like you have some of this earmarked for these things you mentioned. Why isn't the rest going to the reserve fund?
So yes, it was just basically a split, right? So the total that we have here, we just split that everything in the transfers out.
Yeah.
Is just the 25,000 and then the 135,000 added together. So it will give you a balance here and that. I can maybe try to make that a little bit more explicit in the article as to to show the map. There are a few other elements here because there's different articles here. One of them was to rescind the unspent balance of $10,000 from Article 11 of the June 12, 2021 town meeting to fund the design and construction of a sidewalk on Foster Street. Our recommendation on this was monies that we had set aside for the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. I think we had set aside 30,000 and only needed 20. So in keeping with the kind of the spirit of bicycle and pedestrian master plan, talking with the DPW director, he suggested these funds be used for a future extension of sidewalk project on Foster Street. So this would be a form of extension from the work that they're currently doing now adjacent to the train station. So maybe go further.
What other options are there other than earmarking these monies for something? Can they just go back into the general fund? Can it go into capital fund? I mean, what other options are there?
Well, I mean, there are you can assign it back to free cash, but then free cash is then it's going to full cycle. So the idea of it is to say if you have needs that you can address now, Jerry, you might as well take care of it. So we try to be thoughtful, to try to keep it in with thematically with the types of things that do come up, and not have to add to the any of the tax burden at this point. So.
What happens at the end of the fiscal year to these funds? Do they stay in these accounts?
They do, yeah. So anything that's an article that's set aside rolls forward to the next fiscal year. That's why it's an express vote of town meeting to close out that account to free up the funding as well. So unlike the operating budget, where at the end of the fiscal year, the money, whatever's not used, gets swept. This is an instance, unless a specific action is taken by town meeting, the money stays in that account.
So there's 135,000 we're moving into the select board account.
Mm-hmm.
How much is in the select board account already?
We do have, there have been a few other articles with this. So there's a few, I think there's probably, roughly speaking, probably about 200,000 as well. So, but I mean, the thing that you have to keep in mind is if you lose a boiler, that's you have to replace that, and the scale of it, of the needs of the buildings.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, there seems like we have the reserve fund and this fund, and I don't know where the two.
And the stabilization fund as well. I mean, the
stabilization fund's something different, because that has to come
so
through.
The point of this fund is to have, basically have cash on hand for, you want to say emergencies, but there are things that regularly come up. We spent a good portion of our week last week trying to chase down roots that had taken over a drain, and we were able to, to fix that with it being jetted out. But we were also contemplating what that would be like if we needed to actually replace the line itself. So then you're cutting into, the cement and having to then replace and patch it, so that there aren't things that. When you're dealing in a municipality like this, with the types of projects that we're in, they aren't small things oftentimes that come up. It's more significant.
I'm just wondering where the reserve fund and this fund overlap.
Well, because we see this every year. I mean, this is every year we have these. So
yeah.
But
I'll just take the orchard, right? We asked for money out for the orchard from the reserve fund. Should it come from the select board fund versus that? There doesn't seem to be a policy for how they're being spent.
But we are going to talk some about an orchard article, so we'll get to that.
But then
yeah.
Maybe we need to put that into the policy, or have a policy on it.
So who controls the 135? Is this something happens and
Yep, this would be a select
you
board.
and Jim just say, yes, go ahead and spend?
Yeah, I mean,
Does something come back
for
to
the
the
most time,
select board?
it would be the same sort of rules that, that we have. And most of the things that I would imagine that we're going to need out of this is going to be select board driven to begin with, or emergency driven, such that we probably wouldn't want to wait until, when's the next time that the finance committee is going to join, if they get together. So, but it would, the proposal is that it would be under the select board.
So to Mark's point, now that we have a facilities director on board, should some type of account be set up during the budget process and out of the capital funds to fund an account like this?
Or these funds.
These funds being the start of something for this year.
I think that's a good point. It could become.
He's the gatekeeper.
Yeah, it absolutely could be a funding source, especially with this next tranche to think about that. Because again, the objective is that we're not coming back and asking money out of the operating budget, or if you can take existing resources and allocate it, especially too, as this is going to hopefully get better defined with our facilities director for these types of needs. It's a good point, and it would be a logical focus.
So if you don't mind, can we pause and do a couple appointments real quick so we can let the people go?
Sure.
Move to 5A, appoint Juliana Castellanos to the Cultural Council.
She's here. Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry.
It's Juliana.
Sorry.
No problem. So, yeah, I'm Juliana Castellanos. I'm from Mexico originally. I just moved here to Littleton a little over a month ago from Houston.
Way to go.
And
Jumping
yeah,
right
thank
in.
you. It's been wonderful, and I am excited to be a part of the Culture Committee and hopefully give back to the community that has welcomed us in the most wonderful way. So.
Have you seen snow yet?
In my life, yes.
All right, I just want to be sure because this could
You know,
be a
we
short-lived.
lived in the northern part of Italy before Houston.
Okay. You're
And so
good.
we did get some. I don't think we've ever experienced a real winter like we will now, but we're excited.
We're going to experience
For sure.
All right, move that the select board vote to appoint Juliana Castellanos as a member of the Cultural Council for a term expiring June 30, 2027.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you so much.
Juliana, just tell everybody.
Mary Ann here to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Juliana, just the town clerk's right behind you. You have to go see her to get sworn in. Not right now.
Raise your right hand.
Sorry, Mary Ann. You too.
Hey, so thanks for the opportunity. I have been around quite a bit longer than Juliana, 27 years. And yeah, I'd be really honored to be part of this Affordable Housing Trust. You know, I think some of my experience that I have recently has been helpful working with a lot of the low-income folks in town, in Littleton and Ayer, but, you know, obviously be focused on Littleton. And yeah, I retired recently, so I've got a lot of time.
Awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Move that the select board vote to appoint Marianne Harris, a member of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Or me.
They're in here.
Yeah, right. Oh, here, oh, so I'm sorry, there's a typo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It really
says
is.
Harris here on my bad. Move that the select board vote to appoint Marianne here as a member of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees for a term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
So you both will need to go see the town clerk and get sworn in.
Right now? Or
No,
later?
no, before your first meeting.
Super. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Should we do the liquor license too, just in case?
They're not
I don't think they're here.
Oh.
We'll do Diane though.
Okay.
Diane.
Oh, Diane, yeah.
Diane.
She said she loved staying for the entire meeting. I told her
I have
she
nothing
didn't
better
need
to
to
do. Good evening, Diane Corey, Town Clerk. I'm here this evening because, as you all know, we have an election coming up in November, and during the 2 weeks prior to the election, we have early voting in person. On October 29th, you also know that we have a special town meeting. I'm here this evening to ask you, the Select Board, to allow my office to hold the in-person only from 8 a.m. in the morning until 12:30 in the afternoon. Typically, it is the entire time that the office is open, but due to the fact that we have to prepare for a special town meeting, we would like to close the in-person early voting early. The state tells us that we need to have at least 4 hours. We're giving you 4.5 hours, so we're going extra as it is.
Above and
but,
beyond.
We're asking for
Okay.
your approval.
Excuse me, before we vote on this, question for you.
This is we stuff.
What's the minimum amount of hours that the town is required to have in-person early voting? I've sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours, and had literally nobody come through the door.
Well, they know you're
And
there.
I don't mind, you know,
The suggested.
coffee I drink, but.
The suggested is they tell us that we should be doing whatever we have for business hours. But they tell you that you can go as few as 4 hours, but they frown upon it.
For how long?
Who's going to tell them?
Well, we have to put into our state system the hours that we're actually going to be open.
Just be a punk.
And they approve it or disapprove it.
From what date to what date? Is this right?
So it starts on the 19th and it
Like
goes
what?
until the 1st.
That's
So
for the
2
public.
Saturdays and 2 full weeks.
Okay. Move that the select board vote to approve the request from the town clerk to reduce the hours for early in-person voting on Tuesday at October 29th, 2024 to 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Fred, did you
Very
vote?
much.
We'll be open 8 hours for the rest of the time.
Well, some longer, because
Right,
Monday
but-
nights were open till 6.
Right. Just want people to know that it's, it's not just that one day we're.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can get back to the work.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Back to the warrant. I think I'm boring everybody to death, but that's all right.
No, no,
We love this,
We
Ron.
love this.
This is what we do.
That's fair enough.
This is our life.
So we went through the first list and how we wanted to break that down in terms of monies for buildings and another $25,000 related to the assessor's office. Item number 2 was to rescind monies that we had set aside for the bicycle and pedestrian master plan that we didn't need to spend, and put that toward the design and construction of a sidewalk on Foster Street.
I think if you look in some of our bylaws, there's actually a sidewalk fund mentioned. Should this just go into the sidewalk fund rather than a specific sidewalk?
We were debating whether or not, because we were working with the town accountant. I mean, I don't know if we've established, Steve, do you know, do we have an established sidewalk fund?
I don't recall.
It's
Okay, well,
mentioned.
we can check. I think the difference in this case, though, is that with the funds specifically, Mark, were delineated from the Amazon project. It has to be kind of connected to that. So what this is it's essentially
Identifying it more
Within-
appropriate.
Yeah, but
Right,
this is, it's
right.
the other Human Services Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan.
Right, that was one of the things that was allowed for under that, and that was part of the agreement. And so what we're trying to say is, all right, thematically, I still need to get town council's perspective on this, but I think we should be okay that it would be used specifically on a sidewalk and allowing, in theory, the employees there to be able to walk.
Well, we've also talked, Gary and I have talked about needing sidewalks out in other places down Taylor Street.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So-
a very that corner. Yeah.
So I think it would be better if we could put it into a general sidewalk fund, rather than.
I can ask town council about that. So, the last thing is to rescind an unspent balance of $12,000 that was used or set aside for master plan implementation, land use coordination. I think the town planner has informed me is that was money that was set aside just before COVID, and things kind of changed from that. So we have $12,000 available. The proposal from the town planner is that we set aside $6,000 for GIS support for our zoning diagnostic and recodification. I think those monies had already been set aside, but this allows us to connect it to our GIS system, and fund $6,000 for professional services in support of the new FEMA flood insurance rate maps, which is something the planning department's working on, and we'll probably see something at the annual town meeting associated with that. And the updated zoning bylaw to meet the accessory dwelling unit requirements of the state's 2024 Affordable Homes Act. So these are all things that we know that are coming, and this sets aside this relatively small amount of money to support those efforts. And it's recommended by our town planner. Any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, I'll continue to move forward. Okay, Article 8. This is sort of a choose your own adventure article. So we talked a little bit with the Finance Committee about this, and we've talked a little bit about this with the Select Board. So there's $50,000 that the May 2nd, 2022 annual town meeting set aside for a Nagog Orchard building feasibility study. So in talking about it with the Select Board was interested in setting aside the entire $50,000 to support Nagog Hill Orchard related expenditures. We talked about it with the Finance Committee. They recognized that there had already been a fiscal year 2025 transfer from the reserve fund for repairs at the Nagog Hill Orchard in the amount of $18,926. So it was the feeling, and please, my colleagues on the Finance Committee can correct me, but if they wanted to basically pay that back so that there would be funds we wouldn't otherwise need to draw from the reserve fund. And then the balance would be set aside for further Nagog Hill Orchard related expenditures. So it could be either or we could do something else entirely. So there's $50,000 right now available for an old article that we'd like to repurpose.
So we discussed this at our meeting on Tuesday night, and we felt option B was the better choice. Not moving the money out of the reserve fund, putting it back, taking that money out of this $50,000, leaving an extra $31,000 to spend, and if there's extra money that's needed, just come back for another reserve fund transfer.
I agree with that. I think I don't see a reason why we wouldn't use this funds to cover the costs of the repairs. So that would be my preference as well.
Okay. We can do that, and then the other money's set aside so that as we look at the responses to the RFP, this is potentially some of the things that we...
Does it delay anything?
What's that?
Does it delay anything? We haven't started the repairs, we haven't...
No, because basically what we can still pay for it, but we would just do a change charge in the accounting after the fact. So it's straightforward. Okay, Article 9, this is to remind the Select Board, you had this presentation from the Conservation Commission regarding setting aside a portion of the Nagog Hill Orchard. We're able to get a map here. You can see that the portion that we're talking about here that would be removed is estimated at 7.9 acres adjacent to the reservoir and would not include either the lower barn or the lower house. So we may need to tweak this language a little bit more, make sure we, because right now it currently doesn't reference this. We got this map today. That is, but I think it accurately depicts what was presented to you in terms of from the Conservation Commission.
So there's no agricultural restriction on...
Not on that whole piece.
A or B?
No conservation or agricultural.
Nothing, okay. And why cut it in half? I mean, why...
Primarily because the Conservation Commission doesn't want to take responsibility for the structures.
But they do the lower part.
But the lower part is also very prone to invasives. They want to make sure that it's managed properly.
Okay. Does this require a survey and
Yes, which they are going to cover, but they are going to pay for the survey. In fact, they've already started it, or they've already done a survey, or they will shortly.
It's the prettiest spot in town, to be honest with you.
That's my concern, Gary. Not a concern, because I know they'll take good care of it, but it may restrict us, the town, from doing something else if we had other plans to do something with that entire parcel. I'm not saying, put in a casino or anything, I'm thinking, I keep bringing up the Acton Arboretum in Acton, and if that's a pretty hefty parcel there, it's 20 acres or so.
Or a small half shell.
It's got that, the natural drumline, it lends itself to something like the Arboretum. You got the wooded area down along the pond, There's potential for parking out behind the lower barn. I just don't want to be hasty and
This article
personally.
doesn't preclude the select board from doing something between now and spring town meeting to decide, you know, what the, or is there any likelihood that, was it 107B will end up tied to a sale or
No,
lease or anything?
we're not selling anything.
At this point, since it's not part of the APR,
Okay.
we have never considered it to be
Okay.
part of the item that we might sell.
So it is.
It could be part of a lease, but not sale.
So this incremental parcel of land is basically in the care, custody, and control of the select board.
Currently.
And if some other project comes up, it would be possibly joint between the CONSCOM and you guys, or a select board project.
Potentially.
Okay.
So what do we gain by doing this?
Conscom fights and the invasives.
You could
Well,
do
we
that.
aren't.
I mean, DPW goes down and
LCT's
cuts
been
that,
doing
right? They cut it right now.
LCT's been doing a lot of work on Rick and.
They go down?
Yeah, he's done a lot down there. 2019, 2017, 2019, he did quite a job down there to open it up quite a bit.
Yeah, because it's not all trees. I mean, you can tell he's getting cut down. It's
So
nice.
if this goes through, you lose control of the parcel, and it
Correct.
goes to conservation.
Correct.
So you can't do the things that you want to do.
Unless there's some agreement with Conscom. I just don't want to be hasty and, you know, not that we've proven that we're great stewards of land, but,
I mean, the whole thing is a beautiful piece of land, and I just want to make sure that carving it up didn't kind of mess up something you wanted to do in the future, that's all.
I mean, it doesn't fundamentally change the ownership of it. It does change who is under control of it, but if you read the warrant article, well, or the report, in November of 2015, town meeting voted to approve pursuant to an agreement between the Board of Selectmen and Conscom that the non-lease parcel be separated and that the Board of Selectmen were authorized to prepare an engineered plan. So this was already approved in 2015.
This is just codifying that. basically.
We are just basically codifying that
Okay.
decision that the town meeting has already voted for. So I think we should, I would also argue that since we are, as a board, giving up control of it, we would make a recommendation on this, and also because of all of the swirling conflagration of confusion and angst around the orchard, that we make it clear that this is not a subdivision as in a housing subdivision. This is a transfer of control from one municipal agent to another, and that it still will never be developed.
I mean, I would argue, what I did in the last meeting is, I would break the piece up. It should all go to conservation, or not.
Then let's start talking to them about taking the rest of it.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
But I just think that, how we can talk about what we want to do with that building, you know, from a town perspective, but
I think you probably also have to ask them as to what they're willing to take as
Yeah.
well. You know, that's two sides.
well, they're definitely not, that's what they, when we asked them the other day.
That's fine, yeah. This is their first take on it.
Okay.
I mean, you asked exactly the question that I'm asking.
And we don't opine on this, so it's all your choice.
Anything else on Article 9? Okay.
Well, if we're moving on, is that just assume that it's in favor of?
Well, I mean,
Because I'm not.
We can debate it.
Yeah, you can debate it. I mean,
I just don't want it to be, Matthew's keeping a list of which ones are going to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I agree.
recommendations.
No, we should talk about it.
Hold on.
If it's a split vote.
Can we hold off on it?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to research it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Article 10 is basically a placeholder. For funding collective bargaining agreements, we have two outstanding collective bargaining agreements with the police and the fire unions. We're hoping, we're planning on meeting one more time, at least with each one of those groups prior to town meeting. So there'd be nothing really to recommend at this point because we've been putting it here as a placeholder, and if there is a motion, it will be provided on the floor of town meeting. Article 11 authorizes the town clerk to fix scrivener's errors to town bylaws. And so this is something that was recommended by the town clerk to essentially allow the town clerk to make non-substantive editorial revisions to general bylaws. So basically numbering, spelling errors, things of that nature, because otherwise you'd be waiting to fix this for another town meeting. And is the town clerk still there? See, she didn't want to stay.
She wanted to.
Yeah, she wanted to. So this is worked out by town council, and we've seen this in a few other communities, allowing the town clerk some liberty, at least in terms of bylaws, to make those adjustments. And any questions on that? And the last item is our lone planning board article for the zoning bylaw amendment to registered marijuana dispensaries and adult use marijuana establishments. So I think I'm sure there's probably some other members here more informed on this article than I am. But basically this is a planning board article. This is something that the select board typically opines on, but you certainly would have that option. Same goes with the finance committee.
What are the actual changes? I mean, I'm reading the pages and pages, but I'm trying to figure out what they've changed.
Yeah, I just think, to Brian's point, for confusion purpose, I think this kind of turns into a little bit of the MBTA issue we had the first time around with the planning board. It needs to really be highlighted what's changed and why, because this is very difficult to read from the select board point of view. I'm sitting here like,
Right.
it's hard to read.
It's my understanding the primary change was, at least in terms of growth facilities, was that it would be one growth facility currently in town. That site would be stays, but there would be, it basically limits it in terms of no further growth facilities would be allowed.
And that's great, and if they say that, outstanding, but five pages, you can't parse it.
So I thought the planning board was going to bring this as two articles. One is updating the article to reflect the current CCC regulations, and the other was to reduce the number of growth facilities for one.
Which, I don't agree with the article, so I'll say right now, this article is written, this whole, I'm a no. So I don't know where to go. I mean, it'll still go through probably if we have enough votes, but the restriction of it's way too restrictive, and we're basing it on a smell for one facility that's in a neighborhood. And that's the problem that I have. We're saying we're only going to ever have one, when, what if there's one that's down on Monarch Drive way in the back where no one smells anything, and they're perfect stewards otherwise?
So that's why I thought
I have
there
a
should
problem
be
with
two. I thought they were written two. One to update the regulations.
Yeah.
You know what? To change the regulations.
Yeah, they did. I wish they were here.
Well, and again, I think it's something you can ask for an update at the next meeting, but you certainly don't have to make a recommendation on it.
I mean,
But if it's going to printing in 2 days, I mean...
So what you do is you put in, you say the recommendation, if a recommendation is going to be provided, it's going to be provided in the floor town meeting.
This is option B. We want to retain.
There's a lot of great stuff in there. There is, but I just think
But just a procedural, I mean, the warrant is up to y'all. I mean, you could, can you say, this is in no shape ready, and it's out?
Yeah.
When it comes to...
We could vote not to put it on top of the warrant. We could do that. I don't want to do that, believe me. I'm not saying I want to do that. I want the town to be able to vote as written, if this is what the planning board wants to go forward with. But I'm just saying, this is very difficult to read if I'm a citizen, which I am. And there's things in here that should be broken up into more than one article.
Right, I just see
I think
2
they're very
hours
different things
during
that
town
are
meeting.
discussed. That's just my opinion.
Is there any urgency to pass this?
They tried that. This was actually on our warrant last year, and they pulled it.
Well,
right?
a different...
But they didn't have enough information.
It was a citizen's petition.
I mean,
That's right.
There's a citizen's petition, so this is somewhat of a response to that.
I agree with
I have a question about order. I mean, if this article is this controversial just amongst us, I think we can expect a fair amount of discussion. And I don't know about anybody else, I've heard a lot of feedback that, from residents, that they want the controversial stuff handled first, so that if they want to go home, they can.
I mean, I'm probably making it controversial, we're restricting a business model to one, because there are people that are upset of a smell of the one that we have. There's I just think there are two different issues at play here.
Sure, and yeah, I'm not putting
One's in
any
a
judgment on that
neighborhood.
one way or another,
Yeah.
but I mean, if you're having a
Yeah.
if you've got questions, I think we can expect a lot of other people to have questions and this to generate a fair amount of discussion. And I think that in general, the stuff that is going to be the most controversial, that we would want the most input on, should be towards the beginning of the meeting.
Where do you want it?
I can agree with that. It's a very light, I mean, the warrant, this is pretty light. If there is, that would be the only one that maybe has.
Yeah.
That is one of the questions, too.
And you just never know.
No, I know, but I'm thinking, as I look at this, it's very descriptive, there's a lot of language in that article. So,
Yeah, I would say 5.
So can we make that number 5?
Okay. Would you want to go earlier than that? I mean, it's...
Well, I think the tennis courts is the potential other one that would be controversial.
right, so we put it right there with the tennis court, just because that's a discussion.
Okay. So it would be, yeah, okay, right after 4.
Yeah.
Okay. After the tennis courts, okay.
Thank you.
Sure, and that's one of the questions too, because this is your agenda, and what you want to have, so order is one of those questions, so thank you.
So for the select board recommendations, I believe that what has been relatively non-controversial are the bills, number 2, bills of prior years, the number 3, amend the sewer borrowing article, the compensation grid, number 5, amend the Indian Hill borrowing, number 6, rescind the prior bills of prior capital bills of prior years, number 7, the Nagog Orchard funding, number 8, and the Scrivener's errors, number 11.
Yeah, number 8 is option B, right?
I'm sorry?
8B. Number 8 is B.
Yeah. 10 we don't
Option
use it,
B.
because it would have a-
Option B, that's
Yeah,
right.
Okay,
so,
yep, that's fine.
Does that sound right? So I'll make a motion that the select board recommend articles as currently listed, number 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 11.
And 10.
10 we wouldn't, because...
No, because if there's no numbers in
There's
it
no
yet.
numbers to vote on.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
just wait.
so no, let's skip that one.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna wait.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did you get those right?
I did.
Can I ask a question about Article 6?
Special.
Okay.
What is the balance that's left that wasn't spent on professional services?
I think, Jerry, it's about, I think it's roughly about 100,000. So when we presented it, I was saying, my thinking was all of it was available, but realized that there's still that technicality of the fact that, okay, yes, town meetings raised the money, but it's specifically allocated for professional services.
But it was a separate vote for the construction
Correct,
funding,
correct, right.
based on the estimate, so.
Based on the,
I felt
right,
like
based
that-
on the, you know,
that-
based on the estimate, but with the whole budget in mind, because we had the 400,000 set aside, and then said, okay, to get everything else done, we asked for the difference at that time. So it's, you know, and one of the things too that we're, as we're getting more toward brass tacks at 36 King, it's interesting when you're renovating a building versus starting new, like what we're doing at the senior center. You know, there are things that are coming up here. So in it, we're you know, working with our OPM and trying to find solutions. But when you say, no, not you, it's like when we get into finding rot on the side of the building because there's sitting water there for a while, they're chasing that down. Things that, you know, you just really can't fully anticipate until you actually start digging in underneath. It's just that there's a lot of those types of things that we're finding with 36 King. And probably anticipate using most of the contingency on that.
It's no different than the $1.5 million that we remember that we did in the annual for the senior center. That was, the article was specifically written for design, but it was still part of the entire project. We didn't spend all that, so you push it to the whole project.
But it doesn't add.
So it's the same, doesn't add to the number that we
I don't know if
brought
that's what you're worried about, that it adds to the bottom line.
No, I just think if the project, if it doesn't cost what, we don't need to spend 100,000 more just because we have it.
Right, it should
if
take
it's
away
not
from the borrowing.
necessary. Right.
And if we get to
Or
cut it
it's
down, we will.
available.
Right.
Or it's available as a take back next year.
Yeah, and again, I think, I understand Jerry's point, and I think that when we conceived of it at the time, it was saying, okay, we've got the 400,000 plus the difference we need to get to our construction, and that's how we came up with the number. So, as opposed to doing the specifics on that. So, yeah, but I understand the point.
So, do we want to recommend?
Motion? Motion?
Can you revise it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that FinCom vote to support Article number 2, Article number 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, option B, as presented.
I'll second. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Article 4 is...
Okay.
What other motions do we need?
Let's see, so, I have done the assignment of the articles. Both of you, I think that we don't necessarily have to come to terms on that tonight, but we'll probably come back. Both committees will come back and come to the assignment. I just gotta have that there more as a flag, or something that we have to return back to. We discussed the order of the articles, so.
We didn't have a motion for that?
No, I think we were all pretty good, so that basically 12 becomes the new number 5 and everything else gets bounced down. So I think that's fine. I don't think I think we were all right not having to vote that. And I know this typically will go right into having to post the warrant. So if the select board wouldn't mind voting to approve and sign the annual town meeting warrant, which is not the report, an entirely different document, but essentially the same information. If I could get a vote on that, that would be appreciated.
Move that the select board vote to approve and sign the annual town meeting warrant for posting.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye. We don't have that here tonight, so what we would probably have you do would be to do the electronic signature that we send out to you after that. So that's pretty much it. So you've given me a little bit of homework to follow up on, but I think otherwise we should be okay.
Thank you.
So thank you for everybody's time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
No.
I just wanted to ask at for the annual town meeting, the booklet, we had some information on electronic voting. I just asked if the board could maybe reprint that for this booklet.
Tim, I can tell you that I tweaked that out of it because it was the first time, but I tell you what, why don't you and I work on something for that? Okay, that's no problem, because I think what it said, the way, if you read it, I was looking at that today, and it was basically, this is the first time we're doing this, if you've got questions, that kind of thing. This will be the second time, but I think we can work on something.
As a reminder.
Yeah, just didn't want to forget it.
Yeah, that was just one of those quick things that I had, but we don't, that's your report. And you're updating the beginning.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, as long as it's...
That's all right, it's fine. No, we'll make a note of that, and you and I can work on that.
And I think that I just want to be clear, the FinCom just took a vote to recommend certain articles. Number 5 was one of them, that's the original number 5, not the...
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Tim does bring up a good point, Mark, that we probably have to keep we're assuming that the same people show up to every town meeting. You don't want people sitting there going, it's not working, because they don't know.
Right.
So I think we actually have to do a very quick announcement every single town meeting
Yeah, yeah. a little-
For youth and clickers,
Yeah.
as a reminder.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Tim, too, we also have sort of the standard evergreen items. In fact, actually, now that it should have been in this draft, but your update that we put in every year about how long people should. This is how town meeting works. This is.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So we have that as well. So, but I think it's something you and I can work on between when it comes to the. Okay. That sounds good. All right. Anything else?
They're done.
Are we done?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, we're out of here. I didn't even get to.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I wanted that record for something.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Finance Committee.
Hey, guys.
Have some fun.
Yeah. You around this week?
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
One-day liquor license.
A lot of damage in the day.
Yeah. This is for Farm 359 for Saturday, October 26th.
Okay.
Aye.
Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Colin Knirk of Dirigible Brewing Company, LLC, for wine and malt beverages for a community event located at Farm 359, 359 King Street, Littleton, Mass, on Saturday, October 26th, 2024, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we did the appointments, so we're on to
C.
bicycle and pedestrian.
Oh, that's two. Sorry.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Cavallo. I represent the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee tonight. BPAC advocates for safety and access for cyclists and pedestrians, but as an advisory committee, we have no funding or authority. So we need funding and authority, so we come to the select board for that. And I come to you tonight with an opportunity, not a problem. Tonight I bring an opportunity to use the recently available parcel of town property on Long Lake in order to connect Lake Shore Drive to Two Brothers Trail. And by making that connection with an ADA compliant boardwalk across the lakefront town property, will allow for persons with disabilities from the town beach to the lakefront interface with Two Brothers Trail to traverse from the town beach to the lakefront area in front of Two Brothers Trail. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd like to go over the what you have up there quickly for a background. So in background, in 1998, the Littleton Conservation Trust received a grant to build a trail between Conant Park and Long Lake Beach. Conant Park is down on White Street, I think it is, down by the Littleton Lumber. Don Prouty and his brother Roger gave us permission for a trail to pass over their land, and also went over some town property like Morgan land. And subsequently, that land was bought by Neff, and that right-of-way continues to exist. So Long Lake Park is the area we're talking about, and a lot of this will come to folks a little better when I show you the pictures of this. But there's this place called Long Lake Park, and it's a narrow strip of land which extends from the end of the Prouty property, which is by 2 Aspen Road, to Long Lake Beach. And this was established by Warren Smadbeck in 1925 so that all the people in his development could have access to the lake, not just the people who were actually on the lake. And somewhere along the line, I guess the town took over that Smadbeck common property there along the lake. So the property, when we were building the trail, we got to the end of Two Brothers Trail on the Neff property, and then we were going to cross over what was called Long Lake Park to Long Lake Road. And the property owner of 2 Aspen blocked the completion of the trail, disputing the ownership of the land south of 2 Aspen Road, which encompasses the unimproved Lakeshore Drive and the park along the entire lake. So in July 2008, 10 years later, the dispute was filed with the Massachusetts Land Court. In September 2010, a judgment was issued that allowed the town to use the Long Lake Park for a trail, and that was 10 years after the date of the judgment. And I provided you with the judgment and what I sent ahead of time. So the project scope then is to build a 128-foot ADA and wetlands compliant boardwalk connecting Lakeshore Drive to Two Brothers Trail. The purpose of doing this is to complete the scope of the Two Brothers Trail, which would go from Conant Park across Lakeshore Park to its terminus at Long Beach. It would also allow persons with disabilities to traverse the entire length of the Lakeshore Park from the border of the Neff property to the parking lot at the town beach, utilizing the new boardwalk, which we hope to build, Lakeshore Drive, which we hope to make some improvements on to make it more ADA acceptable, and the existing walkway, which Park and Rec just built this year, connecting Lakeshore Drive to the town beach parking lot. The town beach parking lot is sort of key because that's only used really heavily in the summertime, so it's a great place for people to park. If they want to go for a walk, they can park there, get the wheelchairs out, and go all the way down to this spot. And also, this particular trail around Long Lake is supported in both the bicycle and pedestrian master plan in 2023, which I hear we spent $20,000 on today, and the open space and recreation plan in 2024. They both talk about having a trail around Long Lake. So the schedule is, prior to today, we socialize this concept with the Long Lake Neighborhood Association, Park and Rec, Conservation Commission, and Disabilities Commission. And what we're looking for today from the Select Board is to allow use of specified town property contingent upon approval of various town boards and commissions that would have a say on it, such as Park and Rec, CONSCOM, and Disabilities Commission. Afterwards, after today, if we get that permission, then we go talk to the CPC and probably get on the next round of funding, but just sort of put in a little tab in there that we might be coming to them. Coordinate with the town commissions, produce a plan, come up with a design for the boardwalk and any other improvements, and cost estimates. So on this picture, this is the length of the entire scope that we're talking about. On the right, on the top where the yellow line starts, in the upper right-hand corner, that's the town beach. You can see it comes around Lakeshore Drive and goes all the way down. And then at the end, it has a little red tip on the end. So if you can go to the next picture, that's the red tip again. So that's where Lakeshore Drive and Aspen meet. And that red represents where the boardwalk would be. And it connects across the town property to the Two Brothers Trail. Now, there's no intent to have people with disabilities go on Two Brothers Trail. It's just not, at this point, that's not part of this project. Hopefully sometime in the future we could do that. But this would at least get the ADA compliant boardwalk in place. And yeah, it's shown on this one too. If you go keep going up so we can see the part of the trail. Yeah, so that dotted line also represents the boardwalk. And once again, we have to get in there with CONSCOM and figure out the length that we have to go and look at the slope and in order to determine how long it's going to be. But I calculated out, it was 128 feet when I looked at it, and that would be in the boardwalks that we're currently building, like over at Hartwell Hill, the Hartwell Family Preserve. Those, according to folks that put it in, cost $280 per 8-foot section. That's where I came up with the $4,400 from. But CONSCOM tells me we'll probably have to put screws in like we did at Town Forest or someplace instead of using these corrugated pipes. So we'll have to look at that cost as well. So next slide. Here's a couple of examples of boardwalks going through wetlands in town. We've got Cloverdale on the left, and on the right is the Hartwell Family Trust Conservation Area. And we bring it up a little bit. There's another picture there. This is the one taken, I think is the assessor's maps, and it has some yellow lines on there that show where the town property is, where the Lakeshore Drive extension is, but it's hard to see. But Amy said she could only come up with yellow lines. So that's our plan on how we're going to create this ADA compliant walk from the town beach to the beginning of Two Brothers Trail and to after all these years from 1998. And the scouts that worked with us, the Conservation Trust in 1998, are now 43 years old. And so we think it's high time now that the property officially belongs to the town, that we should use this property, which is lakefront property, which is, I don't think, there's currently a trail that goes behind to Aspen Road, but I wouldn't be so willing to just say we should use that, because lakefront property is more valuable. Everybody, the assessor would tell you that. And I think people want to, when they take a walk, would rather be on the lakefront than like in the town forest where you're just walking through the woods on a trail. I mean, we have lots of trails like that walk through the woods. There are 5 great ponds in Littleton, and Long Lake is the only one that's been developed for people to walk on. 2 of them have boat launches. And then Nagog has an exception to the Great Pond thing. It says if it's used for water, you don't have to make it accessible to people. And then Fort Pond, for some reason, doesn't have any public access either. So Long Lake is really the only place we'll ever get a trail around. Yeah. And it's already, because of the Whitcomb land on the far side, and the Two Brothers Trail, and Neff allowing us to use that property. This is the only one we have that we can really get some traction on to have a nice walking path. So, as I said, what we're looking for is the select board to give us the go-ahead to work with the various town authorities. It was Conscom that told me to come to the select board, because they said, they can't really take it too seriously if we don't have approval to use the property. So that's what we're looking for, to allow use of town property contingent upon approval of Park and Rec Commission, Conservation Commission, Disability Commission, and any other folks that you think would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Can I ask Ryan to put up a different image? Ryan, the one that has the dotted line for the path of the boardwalk.
The red line?
That one right there.
That one, okay.
So it's essentially going from the end of
Lakeshore Drive.
On that side, I'm talking about from the woods.
Oh, yeah, and the
So it's going
existing Two
from
Brothers
basically the
Trail.
backside of the Selbrds property, essentially same as the lot line of the Selbrds property, right?
It's the end of Neff. It's the end of the old Prouty property that Neff owns.
Yes.
There's a stone wall that runs up.
And there's a
Yeah.
post marker that says, go no further.
Right. So from there, along with the beach. or
Along the lake
The
shore.
lake, yeah, the lake shore, out to that 60-foot wide swath that comes to
Yes.
Long Lake Drive.
And then we thought that would lower the speed limit on Lakeshore Drive, or put some way to segment out so when people on wheelchairs or in walkers and whatnot can have a protected way. So that's another thing we want to do as well.
Okay, so, all right, so that would be at grade to the road, so that folks that are coming from the beach, say, can get
Yeah.
down Lakeshore Drive and then enter the boardwalk.
Right, and in talking to the Disabilities Commission, they would like to see some turnaround at the end, rather than just have a straight boardwalk. Maybe even put a little bench in. That's all part of the design phase.
Just a little cynical of it being at grade with bikes and scooters and.
I guess I'm a little hesitant. I'm wondering why you would like to do the boardwalk now. It strikes me that to spend, whether or not there's a trail that goes through and all around, like through to Prouty, to the Neff land,
Yeah.
which is, we could talk about that separately, but it strikes me that spending the time and money on a boardwalk there might not be the best place for it. Like, there's not, it's very shrubby. It's not like you're going down there to get great views of the lake and the sunset. It really would be useful as a pass-through if someone was hiking, but it's clear that someone in a wheelchair with mobility issues isn't going to be walking along the Two Brothers Trail along the lake shore.
Oh, no, not at this point.
No, I know, but I'm saying, and so at this point, does it make sense to spend on this boardwalk? If you're going to go for a more accessible trail along in Prouty, that's great, and maybe then would be the time, but is there another place where this could be, something could be done that would connect two places that someone with disabilities can't get across?
Well, let me bring up on Willow Drive. If you've gone by there where they're doing the work down by the light, you'll see these 6-foot boardwalks, sidewalks they put on each side. On each end, they go to nowhere. But, this is what BPAC is all about. We try to get developers to put in sections of sidewalk. Someday they'll be connected.
Yeah.
This is the way it works. You can't, if you try to get a trail that connects to Two Brothers Trail and goes all the way around the lake, and then we get a floating boardwalk across the lake and do that all in one shot, it's not going to happen. But this is a piece that now the town owns, we didn't before. Trails need to be inviting for people or they're not going to go on. We have lots of trails in town that are not very well utilized because they just go through a swamp and a wooded area and they're very buggy. This gives you a nice view of the lake, and it's something I think would be a destination for people who have disabilities, and at the same time it's a through path which is encouraged by both the bicycle and pedestrian master plan that we spent $20,000 on, and the town all came in and everybody had these public sessions and whatnot, and this made the cut. And then also recreation and open space. It also was in there as well. People came in and they said, we want something like this. So unfortunately, you don't get a lot of representation at these meetings from, other town folks other than people who live right in the area there. And if you went by that, then we would all be in our houses and never get out to walk if everybody protects their area. But the fact is, this is town property. We should look at it for the good of the entire town. And that's the position of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
I guess the only other thing I will add is a boardwalk that isn't in wetlands would be less expensive because there might be mitigation that you need to do because you're going to be disturbing wetlands and there's going to have to be some sort of offset, right?
I don't know.
Okay. So that
we would go and find that out from a conscom.
You typically don't build boardwalks that aren't in wetlands.
Well, fair enough.
They're always over wetlands.
Anyway, so I've attended a lot of the open space meetings and have talked to conservation, and I know there has been a goal in town of making a complete walking path all the way around Long Lake. Right, so this is one of the missing sections, effectively, right? I mean, there's other missing sections too on the Tohono side, but this gets you 3/4, 7/8 of the way around the lake now, so, which we didn't have before, so.
But in what sense is this, this is what, 50 feet difference between the easement and the proposed boardwalk? And why is that connection so much better than the connection that currently exists by the easement?
Well, this is on town land and the easement is not.
Well,
so.
That doesn't make it better. That doesn't, you said it connects things, but the easement connects them as well.
Well, you got some geography difference there. The lake is fairly level, although there are some wetlands there. But the existing easement is very steep, and you'll never make that ADA compliant.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you do a project like this, as the state did down at Willow area, if you're going to be breaking ground, you make it future-proof. And as I said, this is lakefront property. This is what people like to go for a walk on. I don't know how many people just walk in the woods. So for us to not use this property and take the bypass route up back, it would be giving up something of value. And I think we have to have a really good reason why we're not going to do that, because certainly there's other places in town that we've built trails, boardwalks, much longer boardwalks through wetlands. So it's not the wetland thing, it should prevent this.
Just because we've built boardwalks in wetlands doesn't mean that we're not potentially disturbing something that's unique here. Wetlands aren't interchangeable, right? Just because it's a wetland doesn't mean it's the same wetland as what we've disturbed before. And I think the argument about, this boardwalk is that this would disturb a unique habitat. And I'm not hearing anything about that. And so my question for you is that because, my question for you is that because you don't view the wildlife question as within the purview of BPAC, which would be fair enough, or do you think that, those assertions are untrue, and if so, why?
So I'm just talking from my personal experience. It's more enjoyable walking along the lake. I would leave it up to the conscom to decide if this is possible, and if there's really going to be any damage to leopard frogs from putting a raised boardwalk in over a wetland like we have done in many places in the town.
So you haven't really, your thought,
I'm
BPAC
not an
hasn't
expert.
considered that. Your thought is, let's leave that to CONSCOM?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, I agree with that approach actually too. I mean, I'm not an expert on where the frogs are there. What, I read the report of all the species that were there, and beavers aren't necessarily on that side of the lake, the dam's on the other side. Red-winged blackbirds are everywhere. I mean, we have a species of frog potentially. If CONSCOM says it can't be built there, then they're the ones that should be deciding that. They're the experts, we're not. So.
I'm challenged with the 130 feet of boardwalk. I just don't see a whole lot of benefit.
It's smaller than a lot of the boardwalks. I mean, they just built a 130-foot boardwalk in Cloverdale, and if you ask me, I'm not even sure why we did that when it wasn't wet. So, and the town forest has miles of boardwalk in it. So.
Understood. I mean, this is kind of at 130 feet to frankly nowhere. I mean,
it's not to nowhere, it's to the other end of the Two Brothers Trail. So
but it's not connecting to the Two Brothers Trail, because the Two Brothers Trails, they're going to put there's talk about putting some sort of turnaround there. That's what this building.
No, it would continue on.
It would connect.
It would just be a turnaround for people with disabilities. At this point, they could not continue on Two Brothers Trail at this point. Hopefully sometime in the future, we can make that ADA compliant as well. Because it is pretty level, the Two Brothers Trail, all the way down to the, I don't know the name of that person, where the bench is. There's a town beach down
the old
far,
boat dock. The boat dock there.
Yeah.
The canoe launch.
So it's pretty level, and that could be made ADA compliant. But, I think to bring up the Willow Road thing, I don't know how we're going to make the connection in the future, but we just want to take it, eat the elephant a bite at a time, like they say.
I mean, who knows, it could turn into something like the Lake Williams boardwalk, where the float in Marlboro, where they have the floating, well, it's not actually a floating boardwalk, the boardwalk above the lake, right? I mean,
I'm gonna just, as far as boardwalks go in town, this is a very important piece, beautiful piece of property, obviously it runs along the lake, but we've never questioned boardwalks in Littleton before. And we count on conservation to make the determinations. I'm not smart enough. It's not my field of study to know what I can step on and can't, so I count on the professionals that study that to be able to tell me that it's safe to put a boardwalk here, it actually preserves the space better or not, and they do that. So as far as that goes, I would have to put my trust in them, but I don't know, they haven't voted. You said they're kind of waiting for us to decide, which is kind of backwards.
I didn't ask anybody to vote. We just socialized and told people what we're doing.
Okay, so I like to make my decisions based on those professionals that, whatever we're talking about.
Specialists.
The specialization field that they have, so that's one thing that concerns me, is I just don't know enough, besides me just saying, okay, well, they put boardwalks over everywhere in Littleton, and it's in ADA. I know you presented to the Disabilities Commission on Friday, and it was recommended by the Disabilities Commission that this, yes, it would be something that they believe would be beneficial to that population. But my only issue right now is I would need conservation to say, yeah, this is a place where we'll do a study, we will look at this, and yes, it's a place where a boardwalk would.
So I think what Mr. Cavallo is asking is for us to approve it, so that he can take the next step and go to CONSCOM and say, I have
pending if they say no.
The select board has given permission for this land to be used as a boardwalk or as a trail, pending your approval, right? And we're not allocating the funds, we're not giving final approval, we're not designing the boardwalk, we're not doing any of that. All we're saying is, you can go to the next hoop. We're eliminating.
Yeah. Well, the way I worded it was contingent upon the approval of the other boards. We would approve the use of it contingent upon the other boards that I listed here, or add any other ones you want. But, yeah. because Conscom doesn't want to spend any time with this if we don't have the property, because that's town money they'd be using with their time.
I think this is just an example of how broken some of our processes are, right? BPAC is looking at this because in terms of pedestrians like to walk along roads. And the Disabilities Commission is looking at this in terms of, this improves access to the folks that we're serving. Conservation is going to look at it in terms of, does it protect the leopard frogs?
Whatever else, yeah.
And I guess, we're here to look at the overview, right? So I
think the only reason this has to come in front of us is because it's our land.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, if
it's conservation, I would not even have a conversation.
If this was controlled by the Conservation Commission, he wouldn't even be here.
Well, that's self-evident, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I think the thing that I spoke to Sarah Seward about this at some length, and my impression is that there's going to be a pretty robust process of review at the state level as well to look at this and get approved in order for it to be built. So I guess I'm with Gary. I'm comfortable saying we're not the experts on building boardwalks in sensitive areas. If there's mitigation or an offset land or some other trade that has to happen, confident that Conscom is going to come up with a fair process to do that.
But we are the experts on what we do with town land.
Yeah, that's true.
And the best use of town land.
That's correct.
And is a boardwalk the best use of that piece of land?
When it comes to roads, we bring in Steve Yonley. We try to get his opinion on, so I think just having the opinion of whether it's Amy or Conscom, and that doesn't cost us any more money because that's a volunteer board. I'd like to have that information from them.
I'd also turn around and say, if we're not going to do why is this property under the control of the select board? We're not going to be doing anything with this ever, right?
It has been since 1974.
Right, but if you're going to look at who should be, this property really should be under the control of Conscom.
Absolutely right.
It's a formality that he has to come here, because this really should be
Yeah.
an entirely a Conscom decision, not ours.
That's a good
That's
point.
land, should have to go to town meeting. So right now, we have that.
Right, so,
Yeah.
yes, so,
I'd rather have them in the room and explain to us, or you have that.
but I don't see any point. I
There's
mean,
no difference between us saying yes and then.
They're not going to
Then-
recommend it, they're going to recommend it or not. And
Yeah.
then if they don't recommend it, we're going to say no, then we're pulling the.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't recommend it, we'll.
It's
I
not
would,
gonna
I would
happen.
like, maybe either with you or someone on your board, either in groups of two, that unless you guys have all been down there and walked.
We can do a walk if we
Just to
post.
visualize it, I want to see exactly from where to where and just see what that feels like.
So
That's all we have to go on. As far as the conservation things, I'll leave it to conservation. ADA, I'll leave it to Disabilities Commission. But as far as the visual from, do we want this boardwalk there from a visual point of view, on our piece of land in front of the lake? I can make that determination probably.
I went down and I tried to walk it the other day, you can't really get there. It's completely overgrown.
It's just shrubs,
It's
yeah.
just shrubs.
All right, so let's assume that's going to be leveled a little bit.
On this space, you go up on the other side of Two Aspen, you can go.
Yeah.
You
No,
can
we're
go
talking about
you can go over
over
the
the
east,
stone
but
wall.
where the
But the
boardwalk
boardwalk
is,
area
it's
is-
completely, it's
Impenetrable.
Yeah.
it's impenetrable,
Yeah.
yes.
I should have walked it.
If, I'm perfectly
You can't get
fine
through it.
saying, kicking this to Conscom and saying, if Conscom thinks it's a good idea, then, and can come with the funds from some source, then it's fine by me.
I feel essentially the same way.
What's your timeline if this was to kick off, you would think about doing this?
There's no rush with any of this.
Okay, so
It's taken so long at this point.
Yeah, I know.
We're just willing to go through all the
So
steps necessary.
if I was to ask for, you don't have to show up the next meeting if we put it on our next agenda to have a vote, and we I'd like to go out there maybe with a group, and even maybe I'll ask Amy to go out there with me as well. But I really need to, just for me personally, to see the visual of that, where the road is.
I should have taken a picture, but you really can't see anything.
Yeah.
It's completely.
And I know it's different view in the summer, and the spring, and the winter. I mean, the winter you'll probably see.
It's a thicket.
I think Amy's off for 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
You might be able to see it from the other end.
I mean, that's just I'm not going to hold a vote. I'm not going to.
Well, actually, you can't go into the other end, so.
I don't want to deny a vote. I'll do it.
Fine. No, we can wait.
I'm comfortable with, like you said, the conservation. By all accounts, if it was conservation land, we wouldn't have, I don't think I would have an issue with a boardwalk along Long Lake. It's just, to me, it's appealing. Personally, I park at the beach and I can walk around an area. But probably easier than you could now, right? What you're saying. But that's the only, I want to see it. I know we've got some letters from neighbors, and I want to be cognizant of, some of those issues that they have with it as well. And not people that aren't neighbors that have issues with it, that like a little bit more discussion about it. So that's the only reason why I would ask. So I can go down there and actually get a feel what that. But as far as putting a boardwalk over a species, or if conservation says it's fine, then it's fine. Or if it's better for them, because now they're not being trampled. But that's not for me to determine for sure. What do you? I mean, I'll vote tonight if you guys want. If you just want to move this into conservation's purview and let them make you can do that. But
I would vote that way tonight.
I vote yes, but for slightly different reasons. Just, your point that if we were to give it to Conscom, or that it belongs in Conscom, is compelling to me. Because if Conscom was here right now saying, can we have this piece of land, I would be voting yes. So there's no point in, for that reason, I would vote yes.
I think the reason it was just because of the proximity to Lakeshore Drive. I'm guessing, to be able to put parking along there.
We would need
like
easements to build extra
else's
parking and things like that.
Yeah.
The town to have more space, widen the roads and things like that.
Yeah. I'm totally speculating, but it's the only reason I could think of.
Mr. Chair, what do you want to do?
So I'm fine with the motion if others are.
Okay.
Do we want to do that, or?
Somebody that wants to speak?
Possible to have
Absolutely.
each one.
So, okay, we'll take comments on this. Go ahead.
Alan Selbrd, 2 Aspen Road. I've lived in this land pretty much my entire adult life, and I can say, number one, that the idea of putting a trail in there is directly contrary to pretty much what every Board of Health in this area has said, where there's serious issues of EEE mosquitoes. And what you're doing here by approving this trail is saying it's possible to create a place where you're going to bring people into the most heavily mosquitoed area of the entire lake. And I've lived there and walked this area many, many times. Not one Board of Health that's had EEE has done anything but try to prevent people from having entered areas where the mosquitoes are populated. To me, approving this would be a violation of any issues of health concerning the EEE. We had a case in Acton last week or the week before. I don't know if people here are familiar with the issues of EEE, how serious it is, but what almost every single health board that has examined this question has tried to keep the people away from the mosquitoes. This board, if they approve it, will be doing the opposite. They'll be trying to bring people closer to the mosquitoes and making them much more susceptible to EEE. As I say, I've walked that entire lake for 50 years more, and I can tell you this is one of the most heavily mosquitoed area on the lake. Secondly, I can tell you that when the person from the Conservation Commission came down to examine the trail, they included removing part of the stone wall that runs along my property and the lake. You people don't own the stone wall. The stone wall is owned by Neff. I've been amazed that there hasn't been anybody at the 3 or 4 meetings that I've attended about this from Neff to see whether they even want this. I think that Neff, first of all, has specific hours that they're open, the land is open. The land is open till sunset. This trail will not have any way of closing at sunset. So what you're gonna do is introduce people, and I'm having lived there in Long Lake, as I say, my entire adult life. You're gonna introduce this area when the mosquitoes stop, if they stop, to people who are gonna enter after the hours that Neff wants people there. You're not gonna have any gates on this boardwalk. It's just gonna be open to whoever wants to be there. And there's no way you're gonna eliminate people going there. And when I say that, I'm talking about the bunch of kids that are gonna wanna go there, that are gonna wanna start fires, that are gonna wanna drink booze. You're just inviting trouble. I can honestly say that you will never put a path that's going to be susceptible, going to be available for people with disabilities to get to the Two Brothers Trail from here, from this path. Also, I think one of the things that needs to be considered, can I see the map again?
Is it okay? No, sure.
This land here, that's not in front of my house, from here to here, that's exceptionally attractive wooded land. That's the wooded land that allows these creatures to get by. And just to take that down, whether there was any good reason, it's just not sufficient. My wife, in appearing before a local board, has offered to do whatever we can to make the trail on the far side of our house available for modification, to make it more available to people with disabilities. And without considering, one, the mosquito issue, without considering the offer as to how this is going to be made available to people to walk. I don't care what the Conservation Commission says. They're not going to be able to take down that stone wall, because that stone wall belongs to Neff. I don't think Neff's going to want to take the stone wall down. I don't think Neff's going to want to introduce people into this land at any hour with no restrictions, nothing to do with their closing at sunset. And I think you're going to find that this area here, you're immediately going to antagonize 10 or 15 people who park their canoes there. Canoes, kayaks, various boats. They're packed against a tree right along here. If you try to put a trail in there, you're going to eliminate that. I speak to people that walk this area all the time. The vast majority of the people that go around my house are there walking dogs. Many of them with 2, 3 dogs. You're going to have these 2 or 3 dogs running down this trail, this pathway. I don't know how you're going to handle that, whether people are going to have to leash them, and you're going to have a separate law that says leash them. Most people, when they get to these woods, if they have dogs under control, they don't have to leash them. And I think you're just creating new and additional problems, not counting the safety and health issues of the EEE mosquitoes. There's not one board of health in this entire county that has the EEE warnings that would say, gee, let's see if we can bring people closer to the main mosquito population. As far as the issue of frogs and things, my wife has several degrees in environmental education, including a master's. She's taught in the field for 20 years, and I think she's probably able to explain it. She wasn't able to be here tonight because of medical issues. It just makes no sense what you're talking about doing when you've got an adequate solution on the other side of our house. And we have offered, as I say, to try to make that trail more accessible to people with wheelchairs, people that are disabled. There's nothing about this trail that's going to open these woods into people with disabilities. I mean, I think it's already been said, but I think it needs to be said again. And as I say, we were happy to consider what could be done to improve the existing trail without spending money and aggravating a lot of people who go through this land regularly.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Pardon?
Rob Brown's 25 Juniper Road. There are many inconsistencies that this area presents. The easement area, walking it, it is a difficult grade and slope. The area that would be provided by the easement also presents itself in woods. We have many locations that we can walk through with woods. The conservation town, you pick it. They've looked the other way, as numerous owners of nearby properties have placed boating docks, boats, almost keeping it like it's their personal property on town property. I'm interested in access for all the residents and all the non-residents, quite frankly. The town has invested for what, close to 50 years on this property and connecting it. I would argue, through the chair to Matthew, if you look at this specific property, it might be the only vantage point that somebody, anybody, whether you're disabled or not, can get close to the water other than being on the water from the boat ramp or from the beach. So it provides a unique spot to walk through Lakeshore Drive and get access to some of the vegetation, some of the amphibians that are right there. So I hope the board tonight will move this to conservation so it can get further review as has been discussed, because there's inconsistencies that I've heard some of you say tonight and complexities that I think need to be better understood. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Final thoughts, or we should do a motion?
I appreciate both sides talking about certain things. I mean, the health risk, I definitely didn't think of the health risk, but I mean, people walk that every day, all the time anyway.
It's their choice.
The Triple E, I've been around.
Has had the advisory about when not to be outside.
Right, I'm trying to think of the last time Triple E even presented itself. We're talking about a snapshot in time as far as being a serious threat to our community. I've lived in Littleton a long time.
I would also say that of the 7 entrances to that Prouty Woods, there's one with a gate and it has a path around it. So there's no gatekeeping there of any kind. And as someone who lives immediately above it, I guarantee you that the kids will be there drinking and making fires, whether or not this boardwalk is in place. So
if the boardwalk's not there, they'll use the easement.
that is correct.
Until the board's not there.
I will tell them, I'll yell, Chuck says knock it off.
Let's let your dog out.
I would say, regarding mosquitoes, the only thing that gave me pause was the thought that if we improve it, right, if we build a boardwalk, then it would be more targeted for spraying. And then we're just compounding the damage we've already done.
But I mean, would Conscom allow that?
I don't think
I don't think they
allow that.
would.
I don't know. If it's,
you can't spray that close to the lake, I'm sure.
you can't spray that close to the lake, but then if you're not going to spray that close to the lake because it's going to cause harm to the animals, then why are you building a boardwalk there that causes harm to the animals? And why are you making something more accessible to people?
Because it's always a compromise between what people want to use the land for.
I would argue that's the wrong side of the compromise. I think there's a fair point that, we're making this, we're making it more attractive in a more dangerous area.
I think if you walk through the town forest, you'll find plenty of mosquitoes around boardwalks.
Well, that's done and dusted.
To me, it just boils down to, this is one of those things that I think benefits more people in Littleton by having it than the select few that don't want it because of certain other reasons. That's why I'm going, I recommend it if we're going to vote tonight because of that I think it'll draw more people to this area potentially.
Sure.
But it would draw the people that couldn't go there otherwise, because if I wanted to walk that area, I'd walk it now and just walk up and through and to the woods. So it'll just allow the people that haven't been able to have that access, and that's why I would be more in favor than not.
My primary concern isn't about people necessarily. I mean, I just think that there's a fair point there, but my primary concern isn't, whether people would be happier walking there or not. My primary concern is whether, yeah, it's the environmental impact. And since I'm not in a good position to assess that, I would cede that to Conscom.
I agree with that too. I'm concerned about the environmental impact too, but I don't have the expertise, so I'm hoping that Conscom weighs in appropriately, and Mass DEP and everyone else.
In that case, I will move that the Select Board vote to approve the request from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to utilize town land to build a trail connecting the Two Brothers Trail to Long Lake Park.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Consensus.
Was
Okay.
that an aye or no?
Consensus.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
What's next?
The IMA.
With the condition that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Conscom.
Yeah.
With the condition,
Conservation Commission.
Subject to approval by
subject.
Conservation Commission
And all the.
and any other
Permitting,
regulatory boards.
permitting agencies.
I mean, if Board of Health
And
wants to
NAF,
give an
yeah.
opine on this.
Although Neff would just have to talk about the stone wall.
But if you're going to deny it, you're going to deny it based on, you're just denying it for people with disabilities. Because I can go down there right now. So, can't make everybody happy, I guess.
Okay. The IMA with air for sewer.
Mr. Chairman, you have, this was something that was at the last select board meeting that was for review, and town council advised she was not ready to, felt comfortable for the select board to sign it. That has since changed. It has been signed by the town of Air. And the LALWD is scheduled to have it on their Wednesday meeting. In communication from town council, she is supportive of and satisfied with that for this to sign, for the select board to sign. And as it points out, the town, either town will bear any cost towards this. It will all be the petitioners, in addition to there would be a maximum of 1,220, I believe it's 1,220 gallons per day of wastewater usage. So, if going into the town of Air, and recommend that to sign it, please.
Okay. Do we vote to sign it, or sign it contingent on the vote of approval of LALD? They're really waiting. They were gonna look to the select board, and as long as then they'll follow suit. Okay.
Everybody gotta wait for us.
Do we have any conversation on this, or are we ready to go?
Yeah, this has come in front of us before.
I think that, town council is our subject matter expert in this area.
Move that the select board vote to approve the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Air and the town of Littleton for the provision of municipal sewer services to a portion of the town of Littleton, 254 to 260 Air Road.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
With all the conditions and whatnot that as far as the gallons per day and all that kind of stuff, right? That's all part of it.
That's all in the
That's in the IMA.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Government study review. Mr. Chairman, and members of the select board, what you have before you is many weeks or a few months worth of work from the Department of Revenue that came out, that talked to a number of different department heads, elected officials, people on various boards and commissions to understand the challenges within the current form of government, and they have recommendations that they presented to the select board. And I'll just highlight those recommendations. Would be to consider a town charter, elevate the role of the town administrator to a town manager, redefine the finance director to a CFO position, review elected boards and committees, consider consolidating DPW functions, and perform a comprehensive review of the bylaws. And as you also are aware that as part of the community compact program, we were successful in securing a grant from the state in order for us to continue this this review going forward. And we have looked at the Collins Center, who is well-versed in shepherding this process and helping communities go through this process to make such a similar change. And right now, because there's a couple of different ways of doing it, it's reflected within the report. We would like to be able to, at a later date, after securing the services through an agreement with the Collins Center, and to have a kickoff meeting with the select board on moving forward to what we need to do. Questions? And it's on the town website. This is also on the town website.
So, based on this report, we just kind of need to decide what the next steps are and how we want to break it up and go forward. So.
And I think forming a charter committee, I think, has been identified, at least in the discussions we've had, as one of the risks or the hurdles that we're going to have to overcome. Is finding 9 people who are committed to 18 months of, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is important, but I think 9. I think there's typically between 5 and 7.
Oh, okay. I thought it. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can have 9, but they in having initial conversations with the Collins Center that has gone through this, they typically find it better. It's 5 to 7 people.
7, 4 is a quorum. You can get that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but to your point, though, it's going to be a tremendous commitment, without a doubt. And then the various things of what this, does the select board, how many appointments would you prefer, and then how do we do that? Do you have 5? Do you have 3, 2? How many do you have? Is FinCom, school committee, however you would like to apportion it up.
Okay. What was this, this was open to a motion tonight?
No, not tonight.
Oh, okay, all right, I just want to make sure.
Talking.
It would be awesome if there was some sort of a session at MMA
Oh, my goodness.
on this.
Yeah.
So we just got to, I need to review this a little more.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like the Collins Center is the subject matter experts that we're going to get. We're going to get input from directly.
So does the Collins Center, who will the Collins Center work with? They'll end up working with the committee, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So they'll have resources available.
Yeah.
But Chuck's point, which is a good one, what about us making informed decisions about how to approach the process?
Yeah.
Because I do not have an informed decision at this time.
Yeah, that's where I'm struggling, is how we actually get started. And, I mean, it's a huge nut to crack, and it seems like if we try and do it all, we're going to struggle.
Would Sean, or
It's Anthony.
Secretary Cronin, what's his title?
Sean, you're right,
Yeah.
from
Would
DLS.
Right. Would he be able to guide us to some communities that have recently navigated?
I think there
But
was
that's
some
what
in
the
packet,
Collins
actually.
Center would be,
Yeah.
that's what the Collins Center. And Ryan and I met with a town manager who experienced this process in a different community. And Matt Hansen is his name, and he is the town manager in Bedford, Mass. He was in the town of Tingsboro at the time as the town administrator and transitioned over. A lot of good insight, and he would absolutely come and share his experience and the positives that for the community in being able to do this. So, but I think if you'd prefer, once the agreement, I have not presented this for signature or asked who you wanted to sign it, whether it's myself, whether it's you, Mr. Chairman. But I'm holding off until we get the grant language from Sean Cronin and from DLS to make sure that, and I'm sure it's going to be fine, but I just want to make sure.
See, I mean, there's at least three big questions, right? And I don't know how much they overlap. There's charter or no charter, right? And then if you're doing the charter, what's in it? There's which board should be elected versus appointed, right? And then there's the TA versus TM discussion. And I don't know how, if these are all independent discussions, how much they overlap.
No, I know the TATM discussion is more, it's not, it really, this even kind of broke it out as the title isn't as important as the power that you give the position. Right. So that one's a little bit different to me. I think out of the charter, we can determine, okay, there's a power, the town has grown to a point now where some of the power needs to switch, some of the decision-making needs to switch to that position. And then from there, the boards and committees definitely, I think, are separate, right? I mean, what's appointed, what's elected, what's...
But I think one of the reasons we started down this path was we identified some of the issues we were having as needing the town manager model, and whether or not we call it that.
Right.
Like, what we're headed for is what
Right.
someone would consider a more, a town manager with more executive function, and us as more as policy, the board as more as policy.
Yeah, that's right.
So understood, like, it's fair to say, like, it's based on the role that you craft, but I think what we're saying is we want to craft a town manager as people understand it. It's my opinion.
But that's perception.
Well, it is to some extent, but, I think if you looked at the job descriptions of town managers across the state, you'd probably find more commonalities versus of town administrators across the state. Maybe not.
I think we definitely need to work towards a more professionalized government, right? Where us volunteers are more overseers and policymakers than
down in the weeds
than we are now, right? On all of the, not just our board, but across the board. I just don't know how we get there. Like, which one of these steps comes first, right? It's the chicken or the egg problem type thing. I don't know how I can see where we need to go. I just don't know how the steps to take to get there. Which one's first?
So is this something where we could hire on say it's the Collins Center, they come in and then speak with us, and then we get the process started, and then we do the committee?
Right.
So that we, at least that...
Yeah, we can have that kickoff meeting that Anthony...
You can answer that question you just had.
And I can absolutely make sure that to prepare you, we can make sure to prepare you ahead of time with the, basically step-by-step, a roadmap. And you'll have that ahead of time before that meeting with Anthony and any other questions you may have.
But I think we don't go into this thinking we necessarily want to go from a town administrator to a town manager. We think we want to professionalize things more across the board, or whatever. We come up with what our goal is and then try and structure it towards that.
And that's the charter.
That's
what it delineates. It delineates authority, it delineates the structure of your government.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that the first decision we have to make is, do we want to do a government study committee and our elected charter commission? We've all seemed to be leaning towards the government study committee based on what we've heard, feedback we've gotten.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's the government studies job to look into whether town administrator or town manager makes more sense. That's not us, so I feel like we can move forward.
It's up to us to implement it though, right?
Right? Yeah, it's up to us to implement it.
Unless it's a...
I think the most challenging
We would
thing
accept the recommendation or not. Sorry.
is I think a challenging thing that you to put your thinking caps on is one of the recommendations that there's going to be need a strong, very good chair of that committee, of the government study committee. And there were suggestions of previous select board members, planning board members, school committee members as an appointment on there.
Nothing.
I can just imagine. But all of those areas, those suggestions can be brought out from Anthony or the team from the Collins Center to come down, and these are some high points you would want to do.
Okay, so that sounds like that's the next step.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, public input.
You win.
Yeah.
Don't cough on the microphone.
I'm not contagious anymore.
Anymore?
One
sentence. Famous last words.
No, I had the flu. It was over a week ago. I just have this lingering cough that's killing me.
Okay.
So it's not, I'm not contagious. I'm not giving anyone anything, but I do apologize for coughing.
I'm not a doctor, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn last night.
If I could just get rid of this cough, I'd be happy. So my apologies for coughing at you folks. I keep going like this.
All right. You're not going to get too much public input tonight, but here I am, the public. Actually, I'm Mark Hollinger to Hadamard Road. For over 2 years, I've been working with Mass DEP and Light and Water Department to make public EV charging available in the Littleton Common area. 2 DC fast charging stations are currently being installed and should soon be operational. Yay. Thanks for your support in approving the use of the municipal parking lot on Stevens Street for this purpose. I'm here tonight to inquire about the sign currently hanging in that parking lot, which reads, "No trespassing, 7 p.m. to 6 a.m." Does anyone know the origin of the sign or its basis in the town bylaws? Is it a holdover from the last century when Littleton would roll up the sidewalks after dinner?
Where is the sign exactly? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, I can't picture.
It's on the common convenience side, isn't it?
So where it is physically, if you're standing in that parking lot, so common convenience is on your right.
Okay.
Priscilla Law Office is on your left.
Yep.
And at the very back of the parking lot, there is a utility pole. And said sign is on the pole.
Huh.
It's very prominent, and it's been there like for years. But it used to be that the overhanging tree branches were so thick that you wouldn't notice it. But anyway, so my view is that the common area has come a long way in recent years. It now has 24-hour gas stations and ATMs. And elsewhere in Littleton, the existing DC fast chargers at Light and Water's headquarters and the Tesla ones over at the Point are open 24 hours. Beyond Littleton in the wider EV community, nighttime charging is common and accepted. In fact, one of the conditions of the Mass DEP DC fast charging grant, which is helping to fund this project, is 24/7 public access for vehicle charging. I urge the board to consider removing that no trespassing sign in the municipal parking lot.
Thank you.
And bring it to this
One
historical society.
question, is there a light going to be, a street light going to be installed in that parking lot that's going to be on over the chargers?
So the area is already somewhat well lit because there are lights on the street, there are lights at common convenience.
Okay.
I have encouraged Light and Water to put in additional lights as well as a security camera. I think anytime you have a charging station, you should have lights, you should have a camera. I don't know the answer to that. It's their project, not mine. It's kind of a joint project.
Question
but they're more in
regarding
charge than I am.
the no trespassing thing. I agree. It's time to move on from that. But if these are fast chargers, I would assume you'd want to put something like 2-hour parking limit on. You had someone that would be plugged in for a whole night. We don't want that.
Light and Water charges you if you're parked.
No, that is, but I'm just saying.
You can't afford to stay
Right, it's like a hotel.
It's like $1 a minute if you're not charged.
After the first half an hour to an hour. So do you put something in there?
So trespass is an unauthorized use. So if we somehow adopted something that said that charging your EV is an authorized use, then anybody who's charging their EV by definition isn't trespassing. But kids hanging out or grown-ups hanging out and not charging their vehicles would be.
It is a municipal parking lot, correct?
Yeah, and the pub's open.
Yeah, I would say, I would just.
I'd say let's get rid of the sign.
Yes,
Yeah.
and just call it a day.
Is it a town pole, a utility pole, do you think? Yeah, let's just ask Steve.
It's in the back of the lot.
Let's just ask Steve to remove the sign. I think that's absolutely appropriate.
And we have, that's.
Can I have it as a souvenir?
It's gotta go to the Historical Society.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's fair.
That's within our purview, so.
Yeah.
Right.
It is, but if the sign is only giving notice to folks of what the law is, I mean, I think that's worth researching.
Yeah.
Is there something in there that says, is there something somewhere in our books that says
It'll say
public areas
But
are...
like, we don't have a sign on the common that says no trespassing on the grass, 7 PM to 6 AM, right?
No, but
Actually, I think there is such a sign, at least there used to be. I think it's
Fay Park,
Cemetery.
In fact, there's a
cemetery,
sign
you know,
right-
I think,
Right here,
I don't know.
you're actually all trespassing when you go out to your cars, because there are signs that indicate that parking lot is closed at 9 PM.
Well, we wouldn't have been trespassing if Karen was running the meeting.
moving on.
We can look into it if you want, and we can report back. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they just probably don't
For
want
sure,
people
take down
parking
the sign,
overnight.
right?
Yeah, it was an overnight thing. They didn't want people parking there, using it as a park and ride.
Yeah,
We
no,
could put a plastic bag over it until we find out that.
yeah, for sure, take down the sign, but also let's make sure there's not a deep-seated,
Yeah, so, yeah.
another issue.
I can tell you the history.
I
mean.
No.
Good. Go take some Robitussin, would you? Go take some Robitussin. Send us an email with the history.
All right, so we agree to.
Yeah.
I think we just,
Yeah.
the chair can just ask Jim to take care of it.
Yes, so.
You'll look into,
Yes,
report
sir.
back if there's a reason not to.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Do.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the work you did on it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you put a gas pump there too for my truck?
Can we help you buy a
You have one across the street.
Pot stirrers.
Roger Houston, 55 Jennifer Street. I just wanted a couple of comments about the Government Study Committee. I don't know what the magic number is, but there's going to be a lot of interested people in the future government for our town. I agree that it needs professionalized and it needs a path forward. I don't know whether it's 7, 5, 9. My only suggestion is we need to include members of the public on that.
Yeah.
If you're going to be talking about changing boards from elected to appointed, you're going to run into some issues with those boards. So how you identify who goes on that committee, because at the end of the day, this has to be passed by the town at a town meeting. And as I read that report, it also has to be voted on.
Yep.
So it's the two-step process, and in some cases, it then has to be taken before the state legislature. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not looking at the speed by which we accomplish it, it's about looking at accomplishing it in the best way for the town. I am interested as a citizen in this process, and I would be interested in the committee. So I just wanted to step up and tell you all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be interested in that committee also.
Fantastic.
Long-term resident. And yes, I can get along with Rob.
Okay, members update?
I'm gonna pass.
On the orchard front, we did get 4 responses to our request for proposals for lease. We, as a board, will need to decide on next steps. I am going to call a meeting of the Orchard Working Group for next week to review the RFPs and discuss, but it's not clear to me that that working group has a mission anymore, given that it was, I think its mission was to determine the best use of the orchard, which it has done. So I'm interested in hearing from this board what you all believe the best course forward is, whether we dissolve the working group or reinstate it and expand it again. Are we responsible for reviewing the RFPs and picking a winner to start lease negotiations on, et cetera?
Sorry, how many members are left?
4. So we have exactly enough for a quorum if everyone shows up.
And why don't we put them with us? Why don't we be part of this? Board.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm saying, well, like, what exactly are you proposing? And we don't have to actually, I mean, we don't have to decide it now, but I don't know, I mean, I have opinions, but I'm not sure, I don't want to make some unilateral decision on what to do.
I feel like we kind of do need to decide now because the proposals are here, waiting to be evaluated.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well,
maybe not like
We
right
can
this second, but I do think
evaluate
that time
these,
is
right,
of the essence.
Yeah, they're public record, so I believe they're public record. Are they, Ryan, the submissions?
The submissions are.
They would be, yeah.
Okay, so I can distribute them to this board.
But they're a sealed folder, we can't.
No,
No,
the non-price
yeah.
part of it is unsealed, so.
So would we be comfortable individually looking at these and then getting together to discuss?
To Matthew's point, the working group did what they were charged with
Yeah.
doing, and they brought that to town meeting. And this is the next step that we, in conjunction with the working group, decided to take this path, and now it's really, I think it falls on us to.
I mean, I'd like their opinion still. I'd like them
Yeah,
to be
So,
part of it.
sure.
I would say yes, but we're not the subject matter experts for commercial, for nonprofit farming or for commercial farming, that
Right.
the people on the working group, both past and present, are. And so I think, like, I would be more comfortable getting their opinion
Sure.
and input on that decision, and including some who have resigned from the working group. I still feel like they would have very valuable input on those RFPs.
Well, they resigned though, so you
Yeah.
gotta be.
No, I
I
understand,
mean,
but,
so it would
They
have to
don't
be
get a
during
vote.
public input, but
right, they don't get a vote, but still, so I guess I'm just kind of feeling my way through the process.
yeah, sounds like we need a joint meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is that for the RFP process, you have a grading component within that. So typically, you'd say, thered be some sort of subcommittee of the select board, and again, if you wanted to bring other people in, okay, but, it's, you want to be careful in the sense that you're going to be talking about these proposals in public. I'm not sure, there's been varying appetites about how many people, want this information known. I think one of the proposals said we're not going to name names of the people who are participating because we don't want them to threaten their jobs, things of that nature. So, I mean, the question for the RFP is a fairly specific one, which is to say you've got 4 applications. One of them we're going to actually dismiss because it wasn't responsive. It only had 1 envelope, instead of 2 envelopes of the price proposal. So really you only have 3 to evaluate. And then from that, you have to look at it and grade it from the RFP. Now, there's ways that you can do it to bring the entire select board in. You could expand it further, but, it probably then becomes public meetings, but you might just want to think through the consequences of what that looks like. Again, considering some of the sensitivity of the people who put that information in, and even though it's a public document, may not necessarily, want to.
Right,
want to
okay.
do that. So, and again, it's just, in the end, you have to have people going through it and saying, okay, we're giving 25 points for X, 25 points for Y, and then it's just counting it up after that. So, and then making a decision as to who the selected party would be, and then entering into the negotiations with them.
Okay.
Which we've done. We've already gone through this whole process, so it's,
Well,
we're not recreating the wheel.
Which one, from when you did last time?
Yeah.
Well, but there was only 1 applicant.
But it's the same.
After you made the selection, it's the same.
Yeah.
Right, after you make
For us.
So it sounds like your suggestion is that Matthew and I just review these.
I mean, I'm not trying, there is, and again, it doesn't, I think you could maybe think about if Matthew to share some of this with some of the other
Yeah.
peoples of the, not necessarily of the Orchard Committee per se, but subject experts in town who may be able to provide some more expertise with that.
Yeah.
And they could be a party for whom could be scoring. I mean, it's really my recommendation to the board, you think about it as a subcommittee to go through and grade it.
Okay.
And make a recommendation ultimately to the board as to how they want it, the select board as to how you want to proceed.
So I'm just trying to figure out how practically speaking to do this. I don't think we can come up with a subcommittee tonight. When's our next meeting? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
So the Orchard Working Group is gonna meet before that, so maybe between now and 2 weeks, I could come back with a proposal for a subcommittee to evaluate the RFPs and move forward from there.
I'd like to still see him. Are we allowed that?
Yeah,
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same
we're all
sheet.
allowed to see them.
Okay. That would be,
Ryan, can you forward?
and even if I have to come to the
Can you
office.
forward them to the rest of the board?
for the rest of the board, sure.
Okay, thanks. Does that sound acceptable to everyone? Okay.
That way I can ask, we're not blindsided, we can ask
Yeah. No,
legitimate questions
understood, yeah.
when that board makes a decision, like, well, why didn't we consider that,
Yeah.
instead of just being like, okay, I guess.
Okay. That's all I've got.
That's good, we had, 3 applicants is 3 applicants.
Yeah, that's right.
Karen,
What's worth?
do you have any updates?
Yeah, I went to the PMBC meeting. Thanks very much, PMBC, for all your hard work. Went to the CLC meeting and, again, just was kind of blown away by how much effort those folks are putting into the lakes issue. Fundraising was a big question, of course, a big topic, and I think that they had some good ideas for potential sources of funding in the future. So I'll let them bring that to us when they're ready, but I was really encouraged by the conversation. And they just wrapped up over the summer, I guess, 4 days of floating island removal from Long Lake.
Yeah, saw them out there.
So that was a major accomplishment. So thank you to them for that. And then we had 2 Eagle Scouts that were honored on Sunday, and John Beltrami, right, and Linus Nealand. So congratulations to them, and they did amazing work, really cool projects that helped our community. So that's all I've got.
So I thank everyone for the participated in the Littleton Road Race. I guess a week ago Sunday. I believe there were 435 runners between the 2 events, and it raised approximately $10,000 for the track and field.
That's great.
So thank you for all the volunteers, runners, and looking forward to seeing everyone out there next year. I talked to Steve Annuity recently, and we talked about how to handle capital requests for the upcoming budget. And the suggestion was that a few of us meet with the TA's office to go through the capital requests when they're coming in and help start formulating more of a capital plan for both this year and the 5-year plan. So the suggestion was Gary and I will start meeting with the TA's office to go through the budget with a couple FinCom members. Unless anyone else would like to step up and do it?
Yeah, I would say it's chair, vice chair, but.
Thanks, Gary.
I'll gladly do it.
Yeah.
It's painful. I'll gladly do it. I didn't want to take away from you. I mean.
Yeah, no, it would be a great experience. I don't think I have the bandwidth, so thanks.
Last week I attended an event called Building Strong Communities, where they were talking about how to get more volunteers involved in your boards and elected positions. And a couple of things they said is, one, to keep the number of committees you have down and make sure all of them have a good charge on what they're supposed to do. So, looking through our list, we have a tremendous number of committees that some of them probably haven't met in years, that we probably need to review. So look for that on an upcoming, I think I'm going to work on, with Diane and Corey, figure out who the chair of all these are, and see if they still meet and if they need to meet and bring something forward. There was an Affordable Housing Trust meeting last week. We are looking to sign the contract with Habitat for Humanity to build the duplex over in Tahatawan, probably at our next meeting. And looking still about what can be done with the Durkee Farmhouse property for affordable. So that's all I have.
I just want to throw in something I forgot. We did have another carnival. Right?
Yeah,
So, over the months.
it didn't do that well. It wasn't that well attended.
Yeah.
I think people who did come had a good time. There was, you want me to say this? Should I shut up so you guys can get out of here? The carnival guaranteed us $5,000 net profit. We will put it to good use. But we're trying to decide, having it in the spring, having it in the fall. The spring you're liable to get rained out, which we did. The fall, kids have started back to school. People have other things on their plate. I don't know what we're going to do going forward.
I think Acton has success because it's so visible on the farmland, or they put the big cow out there right on Route 2, and a lot of people see it before it even comes. And I know the Rotary did the best they could do by getting signs out there, but I think with a little more forewarning, because this one kind of snuck up on you, tried to get it done quickly.
This one they came to us last minute and said, gee, we have had a cancellation.
Yeah.
Do you want us back? And it's hard to turn down $5,000 for charity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it was a tremendous amount of effort.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Maybe we get the big cow for the 119 bridge over 495.
There you go. Suspended. I think we can get a bull down in Attleboro.
I think you put it in the middle of 495.
Put it on a man lift right at the end of the 550 parking lot,
that happen.
so it's
Peace
peering
out,
over
get us
the
a boat.
trees.
We're also doing the
Go get the
dictionary
ones at
projects
Hilltop.
in the next coming weeks. The dictionary projects where the Rotary, Raina Sturt's very lovely, takes book plates and writes every third
Rotary
grade
update.
child's name on the book plate. And we distribute these beautiful dictionaries with the third grade child's name in the book plate. And I'm going to have to let you guys all know when we're going to do that. I hope you can show up, because we shake every third grader's hand.
That's
And
great.
it's very fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you guys
Wash
should
your
come.
hands first.
And
Like just sick third graders.
And if anyone's coughing, don't go.
So I think we covered all the other, is there any
Minutes.
updates on Shaker Lane? Sir?
Shaker Lane, so we're meeting again as a committee October 2nd. We've got the two other meetings we mentioned earlier with the Select Board Finance Committee and Select Board Finance Committee and School Committee. So everything's kind of gearing up toward our presentation at the special town meeting. Here's it right now.
Okay, so that leaves minutes.
I didn't have any.
No edits here.
Look good.
Okay. Motion move that the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the select board meetings on September 9th, 2024 and September 12th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Karen, seconded by Chuck.
Damn it!
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Littleton.